India has achieved 100 crore vaccination landmark with your support and your efforts.
Chef sir, should I begin?
Shreya, just 1 minute. I think Professor Russell is doing something.
No,
Okay.
As soon as he says, we can start.
No, just 1 minute. I'll just ask Jailal.
Sure, sir.
Hello. Good morning, Jailal. Are you joining us?
Shiv, make sure that Professor Ved
We're
can
waiting. Okay.
share his
Thank you very
screen.
much.
We are not seeing him on the video
Okay, ma'am. Yeah.
because I can't
he's
see
able
the
to-
icon also, the mute icon
ma'am,
on his.
I think-
It'll be
ma'am,
done
I
in a
think-
moment, sir.
Okay, okay.
Rajiv,
Okay, sure.
Rajiv, I think you know Jailal. He's the president of the IMA, the current the Indian National. I think it's the largest in the medical association. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
WMA? I came to know that they're the biggest.
So we have over, I think Indian Medical Association has over 4.5 lakh members.
450,000 members.
Yeah,
Doctors.
450,000 members. Yeah.
I was at. I've got a meeting here at WMA meeting at which I won't attend today. It's every Saturday.
Ved sir, can you are you able to share your audio and your camera?
Oh, you got Ved is joined. I was just ringing Ved.
Yeah, Ved sir has joined. Sir Jailal sir has also joined.
Good. Okay. Now we shall start.
No,
Yeah.
I think Professor Ved is not.
We'll
still
just
not
check with
visible.
Ved.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
We'll just check with Ved sir if he's able to.
Well, I can't see his thing here.
Piyush, are you there? Acha, yeah, I think he's
Yeah,
on.
Ved is coming. They're just getting-
Sir, his camera is now on. Ved Prakash sir.
His staff is setting it up. Yeah.
Good morning, Ved.
Good morning, Ved.
Good morning, sir.
Jailal.
Good morning, Russell. How are you?
Yeah, Jailal. Good morning to all of you. All the.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Morning,
Good to see
Professor
all
Ved.
of
Morning, Dr. Wade.
Good morning, Mary.
Morning.
Shreya, we can start.
Yeah, okay. So a very good morning to all and greetings from India to everybody who has joined us today. I am Dr. Shreya Namjoshi. I am currently a medical intern at the Mahatma Gandhi Institute of Medical Sciences, Sevagram. And I'm also the additional organizing secretary for Ethos this year. First of all, I would like to thank each one of you for joining the inaugural ceremony for Ethos 2021. I feel immense pride to say that this conference has been organized since 2017 and has chronicled huge success each year, enlightening young minds about the principles of medical ethos and their relevance in modern medicine. I bid a very warm welcome to all our renowned speakers on and off the dais and the delegates who took out their valuable time and joined us. We are honored to have you all with us here today. So let me just introduce the faculties who have joined us. We have with us Dr. Russell D'Souza, who is the head, Department of Education, International Chair in Bioethics. We have Professor Mary Matthew, who is the head of the Indian Program, International Chair in Bioethics. Dr. Rajiv Tandon, Professor and Chair of the Department of Psychiatry at the Western Michigan University Homer Stryker MD School of Medicine. Dr. Shabbir Amanullah, Chief of Psychiatry, Woodstock Hospital, Ontario. Dr. J. Jayalal Sir, the National President of Indian Medical Association. Professor Joseph Thornton, Head Bioethics Unit, University of Florida, International Chair in Bioethics. Professor Krishnan Jones, Director and Associate Professor, School of Nursing, Director, Center for Healthcare Ethics, and Head, Unit of International Chair in Bioethics. The inaugural keynote will be given by Dr. Ved Prakash Mishra Sir, Pro-Chancellor, Datta Meghe Institute of Medical Sciences, Savangi, India. We have Dr. Shiv Joshi, who is the organizing chairperson, and the National President of the Students Program of India under the aegis of International Chair in Bioethics and member of the International Committee of the Department of Education. Dr. Akshay Yadav, Organizing Secretary, postgraduate student of anesthesiology at LTMMC and Sion Hospital, Mumbai. We also have with us Dr. Princy Palati ma'am here and Dr. Derek D'Souza sir. In India, it is customary to begin a conference with a prayer so as to make the event a blessed one and invoke Goddess Saraswati by kindling the lamp of knowledge and wisdom. And thus, I request everyone to kindly join us in prayer for the next 2 minutes. Just give me a moment and I'll share my screen.
या कुन्देन्दुतुषारहारधवला या शुभ्रवस्त्रावृता या वीणावरदण्डमण्डितकरा या श्वेतपद्मासना या ब्रह्माच्युतशङ्करप्रभृतिभिः देवैः सदा वन्दिता सा मां पातु सरस्वती भगवती निःशेषजाड्यापहा शुक्लां ब्रह्मविचारसारपरमा आद्यां जगद्व्यापिनीं वीणापुस्तकधारिणीम् अभयदा जाड्यान्धकारापहा हस्ते स्फाटिकमालिकां विदधतीं पद्मासने संस्थितां वन्दे तां परमेश्वरीं भगवतीं बुद्धिप्रदां शारदाम्
I would now like to welcome Dr. Shiv Joshi to give us a brief introduction about the origins of Ethos, the Bioethics and Medical Research Conference, and its relevance in the students program of the International Chair in Bioethics. Dr. Shiv?
Thank you, Shiv. Thank you. Greetings of the day to all the distinguished faculty who have made time to join us today. Professor Russell D'Souza, our guiding light in the journey to understand bioethics, and Professor Mary Matthew, whose advice and counsel has been indispensable. Today, I'm sharing with you in very brief about the genesis of ethos. It is important to know, as we know that all big things have small beginnings. Knowing the beginning keeps us grounded to the roots of how it all began and how far we need to go. Ethos began in 2017 as one of its kind. It was one of its kind conference of bioethics thought leaders and students at a very small place in rural Varda called Sevagram. Sevagram is also the Karma Bhumi of Mahatma Gandhi. A big challenge was to make people understand the relevance of bioethics in medicine. And of course, no one wants to come to a small village for a conference that is going to talk mostly about just ethics. So, so that was what we thought at that time, but that was not the case. We got participants from all the states of India, including far ends of Delhi in the north, Assam in the east. Okay. So we got delegates from all across the India, Delhi in the north, Assam in the east, Gujarat in the west, and Kerala and Tamil Nadu in the south. Later, in 2017, under the guidance and counsel of Professor Russell and Professor Mary, Ethos was formally made the annual gathering of the National Students Program of the then UNESCO Chair in Bioethics Haifa, now what we know as the International Chair in Bioethics. In 2018, Shri Guru Ramdas University of Health Sciences, Amritsar in Punjab took the lead to organize Ethos, and in 2019, the Tamil Institute of Medical Sciences organized it from Varda. However, the pandemic disrupted the 2020 Ethos, which was going to happen in Nitya University, Bangalore. Now, today we are in the 4th edition of Ethos, which has been organized by the team of medical students and health professionals from over 25 countries, and with esteemed speakers who come from all possible time zones they could think of. We have come a long way, and we are determined to go a long way further. We understand that bioethics is a direction to follow, and it is not a destination to be reached. And we strive and will strive to continue this journey. Thank you.
Thank you, Shiv sir. I will now welcome Dr. Akshay Yadav, who is the organizing secretary, to speak a few words about Ethos 2021. Dr. Akshay.
Akshay, you're muted.
Yeah, I'm extremely sorry. So before I begin, I would like to thank to Dr. Professor Russell sir, Professor Mary ma'am, and Derek sir for giving me this opportunity to host this conference. And what is Ethos 2021? It was just an idea which came in July 2021, and then all the members of organizing committee left no stone unturned to achieve this day when we are starting the first day of Ethos 2021. There are various events in Ethos 2021. So I would say just hold on to your seats and tighten your seatbelts, because this roller coaster ride will take many turns. To start with, we have debate, quiz. Quiz is based on the bioethics topic, and then we have various bioethics related events like EthiView, EthiScan. In EthiScan, there will be case scenarios where all the participants will brainstorm about the cases which we will give to them. And EthiView we have where they will discuss few sensitive topics like human vaccines. Then before the actual conference, we had 11 workshops which were conducted yesterday. And I'm extremely happy to tell you all that there were 40 to 66 participants. Like in the last two workshops, we had 65 and 66 participants who actually enjoyed the workshop, and they were there till the end of the workshop. Then coming to the number of delegates, we have approximately 700 to 750 delegates, including the international delegates. And the international delegates are from about 25 different countries. So as sir said in the beginning, that we have got world together, and I'm very happy with that. And then moving on to the objectives of this conference. So our main aim is to advocate the need to improve the quality, relevance, and application of bioethics in the curriculum of health sciences by sensitizing undergraduates, postgraduates, and even faculties in this field. We have to develop and inculcate a dynamic academic program in all the parts of the world. And we will discuss as well as try to find the solutions to these problems. Thanking everybody, and now we can move on to the next session, next part.
Thank you, Dr. Akshay. I now welcome Professor Mary Matthew ma'am to introduce the Students Program International Chair in Bioethics. Dr. Mary ma'am.
Thank you, Shreya. Good day to all, and it's really lovely to see all of you back again. Just to tell you about the student program of the International Chair in Bioethics, which was initially the UNESCO Chair in Bioethics Haifa. When we first started in 2013. That is when I was involved. But of course, Dr. Princey and Dr. Russell were there much before me. And our first success was in two colleges, that is in my college, Kasturba Medical College, Manipal, and in Dr. Princey's ex-college, that is the Father Muller Medical College in Mangalore, where we decided that we should start a student wing. Initially, we were training faculty to teach and training them in bioethics, but during our discussions, we realized that Dr. Russell, me, and Dr. Princey, and of course, Derek, we realized that investing in students are the future in bioethics. And when we invest in them, we know that the medical profession is in safe hands. And with that in mind, we started establishing units all over India. And now with every unit, there is a student wing of the International Chair in Bioethics, which is part of the Department of Education. And it's really marvelous to see. And we always, we are amazed at the amount of progress that the student wings have been able to achieve in terms of bioethics. In India, when we talked about ethics, nobody knew anything about it when we started. In fact, we were mocked and we were ridiculed when we started introducing this topic. But now if you see the buzzword in India, when it comes to education, it's always humanities and ethics. And that itself is a big achievement, and more so because now it has been introduced formally into the medical curriculum, which I'm sure Dr. Ved Prakash is going to talk about, and he's responsible for much of that. And I'm very happy because we invested in a very young boy. When we saw Shiv, he was very young. He was a student. We invested in him, but see how marvelously this whole conference and, how giving leadership to the correct people has seen the rise of bioethics in India. And of course, his team is marvelous. He has, very dedicated staff and team around him, Akshay and Shreya and so many others who were there. Some have also gone on to do much bigger things and have been involved in international collaboration, international chairs. And now it is not only restricted to student wings for the particular unit, but we have moved further to Student Association, the World Medical Association, the Student Association of India, various terminologies which even we can't keep up because there seem to be numerous student bodies all over the world. And it's really nice. And I'm happy to see the fourth edition of Ethos 4. We have seen it grow. We have seen the different ways by which students find what Akshay was saying, Ethoscan, Ethiview. These are terms that we've never heard of, but they also have something in the lines of drama and dance, and it's really very interesting. And we are very happy, we're very proud of you, Shiv, and your team for taking this and making it a success every year. And this time we have actually focused more on the international students and international faculty, which I think is the next edition of Ethos will be even much better and of course much more wonderful to look forward to. So I really, on behalf of Dr. Russell and myself and Dr. Princey and Derek, and of course all our faculty who have been involved in training students in bioethics, the courses that we run initially it was only restricted to India, but now we have 2 courses running, which includes even international students from all over the world. So it's really marvelous and wonderful to see all of you doing extremely well. We are proud. We feel that you are our babies and you have done very well. So I wish you all the best, and I wish Ethos, the 4th edition, all the best, and keep continuing the good work in bioethics. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mary ma'am. We shall now have the opening remarks and the inaugural keynote by Professor Russell sir. I welcome you, sir. Russell sir, I think your mic is off.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you, Shreya, and Shiv, the conference chair, and other my colleagues, distinguished partners here, our Dr. Mary, Matthew, Derek, Dr. Ved Prakash, who actually heads the academic program of the of our program of the International Chair, formerly UNESCO Chair, and the very Dr. Jailal, the current IMA president, but Dr. Jailal has been with the coordinating the bioethics for a few years now, and we have very proud that the IMA has been very active member of running a unit from probably 2015. 14 we signed the MOU, and it's gone. So we're very happy with that. And with the IMA comes the junior doctors and of the IMA, as well as the other programs, the other student programs. I want to acknowledge and welcome our faculty who have contributed in this. Professor Joe Thornton, Professor Kristen Jones from Canada, Dr. Professor Shabir, who have been actively running programs, taking part, and are here today too. And of course, our chief guest, Professor Rajiv Tandon, who is the chair of the bioethics program at the Western Michigan University, the Homer Stryker Medical School in Kalamazoo. So, and I'm also wanted to tell you that Shiv Joshi, as Mary was saying, he started when he probably still is the student wing president when we started. Of course, he's now not only on the student committee, but he's also with the World Medical Association, with the junior doctors, taking a role with them. He's there are many areas that he's come to beyond just the national program. Now, I'm going to give my talk shortly, but before that, I just want to bring in two important things that have happened in the student arena. One is we have inaugurated and now running for some time the International Students Association, medical students, which is registered body. They chose to be registered in Australia with Tiong Lo as the head, but we have a president, a secretary, and vice presidents from each continent. So we have a vice president for North America, for South America, for Europe, Middle East, Africa, and Asia. So we had the first meeting with all our committee council. I think Joe, Kristen, all of them attended. We had a very, and I think Ved also was there. We had a good meeting, the executives, and they have regional directors. So we had 10 country regional directors also attend besides this. So it was indeed a very important development. And we have a course at the moment running with 30 countries, medical students from 30 countries taking part, and that happens every Saturday. The other important factor here is that for the first time, we have brought in a foundation course on moral values, ethics, professionalism, and personal well-being for the fresher medical students starting right from the first year. And this was inaugurated and launched by the president of the World Federation of Medical Education and the president of the ECFMG from Philadelphia in USA, and Donald Harden of the Association, AMI, founder and secretary general. So this was a great initiative, never done before, where students, fresh students were given, and they've gone for one full year. And it's been very, very successful. We are now going to have the formal evaluation, and I'm delighted that other several other universities will be taking this foundation curriculum that we put together. So that is another very important role that we've brought in for students, and we had 2 reviews. Now we will have, we are going to have the evaluation and comparing it with another university next door or in nearby. Both these batch of 21, we're going to be looking at these 2, and we'll have some exciting results from that. So with this, I will congratulate the organizers, wish them all the best. We had an outstanding program, 11 workshops yesterday from all over the world. The faculty from all over the world took part, from UK, Canada, Australia, India, and we had roughly around 300 participants from the registrations who attended this workshops. Very interesting workshops that took place yesterday. So I'll leave you that to congratulate. I want to thank Akshay, who has been ringing me and doing a lot to get this going with Shiv and also Shreya. So thank you all very much for that. And let me now take you on to my quick try to get you through this talk that I will put together. Now, the keynote they asked me to speak, it's going to be bioethics and infodemics in the COVID-19. As we see here, this pandemic has emerged as a significant global public health crisis. As you know, it has affected, besides the cases and so forth, it has impacted socially too, economies and economics, unemployment. And amidst all this, there's been another important issue, the information that makes the COVID-19 stand out as a digital infodemic from the compared to all earlier pandemics or epidemics and so forth. So added to this is the plethora of misinformation, rumor, conspiracy theories, etc. that and the increased digitalization, media penetration has increased with a more significant number of people aiding to the information pollution. And all this has caused challenges to all involved. So going back to bioethics, providing healthcare in a pandemic to individuals with diverse values indeed presents ethical choices for healthcare professionals and, in fact, the entire healthcare system. Go back to the principle-based approach of Beauchamp and Childress. We look at the 4 principles as a way of guiding ethical decision-making. That's what has been used. Of course, we have the Universal Declaration with the 15 principles that have come after that from 2005. But from the pandemic perspective, we look at these 4 areas: the respect for autonomy, empowering the patient so that he or she can make informed decisions about the healthcare, and of course, non-maleficence. Question is, much of the modern medicine carries some risk, and the question is whether the risk of harm is proportionate to the good a treatment might achieve. And beneficence, do good, minimize harm, and refers to the obligation to provide benefit and remove to benefit to the patient and remove harm from the patient. But importantly, and I'll come back to justice, which is fairness and the obligation to distribute health resources. Now, each of these four principles from a principle ethics point of view is the four principles are equally important, and sometimes they may come maybe at odds with one another. For example, if a patient refuses a life-saving treatment, respect for autonomy might be at odds with beneficence. Yet, these principles continue to help guide ethical decision-making in the healthcare system because it enables decision-making to consider, recognize, and prioritize competing values. Again, importantly here, the pandemic is a beautiful example of how these principles can be at odds with each other. While the four principles emphasize individual rights, they must be balanced with public health mandate to promote and protect the health and needs of the broader population. And then responding to the pandemic through the public health lens often elevates now the fourth, or the principle of justice comes up, and prioritizing questions such as how do you do the most good for the most amount of people? What interventions provide the greatest benefit to the community as a whole? And what interventions must be offered to protect all social groups or subpopulations within a particular community? And when we talk of justice, distributive justice, this pandemic has taught us, and I'm going to come back to that. What do we learn from this pandemic? How do we ensure equitable distribution? What about young adults, school-age children, given the possibility of asymptomatic viral transmission? Will people who are uninsured, experiencing homelessness, otherwise lacking easy access to vaccine be prioritized? Where will they be placed in the process? To what extent will assistance and resources provided internationally, especially to countries with less developed healthcare infrastructure? So these are some of the things that we have to consider. Now, if you look at the dilemmas that looking back, we have 1.5 years, and we've all experienced the pandemic, and with it, the dilemmas, such as how can we ensure that marginalized population can access the care they need? We've learned from this pandemic. How should we balance our need for surveillance with the consideration of one's privacy? What ethical duties do we owe to vulnerable people, as we see, separated from families and communities when we had the lockdown? How do we ethically and legally balance public health requirements on one side and civil liberties in keeping people confined? These are the dilemmas that we've faced, we've dealt with. And do we learn something from this? And what would the post-COVID bioethics mean after learning what we from this? Now, these are questions, and they are the ethics is used to answering these questions. There is a need to answer these urgently, globally, and indeed concrete settings, because this has created unprecedented circumstances. So I thought, is this pandemic an opportunity for bioethics to learn some important lessons for the future? So then what should post-COVID pandemic bioethics be perceived like, having gone through what we've seen the world go through? To go back, the birth of bioethics, born in the 1950s and 60s as a reaction to the atrocities of World War II and the extreme violations of human rights in medical research. So historically, from that point of view, ethics has focused on combating medical paternalism, protecting and promoting individual rights, particularly in the Western context. And we've had some good outcomes. We've made tremendous, impressive work on personal autonomy, right of patients, research participants to choose how they want to be treated, informed consent to interventions. These are some of the outcomes that were brought on with the from when bioethics came back after the Nuremberg and Helsinki Declaration. But what has this pandemic taught us? There are areas in ethics that seem to have been less focused, and these in building, and these are certainly we have been less effective in ethics in building conceptual and policy framework for issues related to justice. Less work on coping with bioethical issues related to families and cultural communities. And tools of public health ethics have been developed, but more recently only. So from these reflections of the pandemic, where could we go to a post-pandemic? COVID-19 pandemic taught us the emphasis on connectedness. The virus threatens all of us and requires a global response. We learned that actions of each of us have immediate or dramatic impact on others. Can the legacy of COVID pandemic for bioethics be a dramatic shift towards the area that needs growing recognition and indeed faster implementation? Talking about justice, we see from this pandemic the important emphasis on distributive justice. Bioethics should recognize the urgent need to develop conceptual tools for resource allocation, not just in the pandemic, but indeed more broadly. Because in this pandemic, the COVID-19 emphasized the fact that resources are limited, and it appears that it's going to always be true. And we cannot meet all the healthcare needs of all citizens. So allocation is often done implicitly. Thus, there's a chance now for bioethics to show moral courage in making these aspects of healthcare explicit. Transparency to justify allocation decisions, to ensure they are equitable, coherent, and transparent will be something that we should be looking to the post-COVID. So in the end, coming into the pandemic from a history of emphasis on individual autonomy in the local context, as we came, our post-COVID pandemic bioethics should embrace the challenges raised by justice in a global context. And the post-COVID pandemic bioethics should have an emphasis on fairness, transparency, trust, solidarity, and compassion as leading values. Thus, if we can do this, we could have a positive legacy of the most challenging and difficult period that the world has and is continuing to face with this pandemic. So that could end up with a positive legacy that ethics can learn from this. Now coming to the infodemic, this COVID-19 has been referred to as a digital pandemic due to the multitude of information in various forms ever since the virus was first detected in Wuhan, in China. Now, added to this is the plethora of misinformation, conspiracy, rumor theories circulating every day, which has, with the increased digitalization, media penetration, this has become much more, there's been information pollution. And when epidemic of information that makes COVID stand out as a digital epidemic from all earlier epidemics or pandemics, this increased information consumption has a significant and long-lasting impact on social behavior. Now, this social behavior assumes an utmost importance in a biological disaster such as the pandemic. Talking about misinformation, which is false or inaccurate information, deliberately intended to deceive in the context of the pandemic, it affects all aspects of life, but importantly, the mental health. People's mental health is more significantly, specifically impacted on. False and misleading stories are fabricated, shared without background quality check. Much of this information is based on theories, conspiracy, introducing elements into the seemingly mainstream discourse all of us have faced and experienced. So misinformation circulates, gets absorbed very quickly, and starts changing people's behavior, and of course, potentially leading the community to take greater risks. All this makes the pandemic much more severe, harming more people, making it difficult, and in fact, difficult to sustain the global health system. Now, understanding this misinformation, some studies have been done, quality studies on social media, human behavior, looking at modeling from the SARS and influenza, have revealed some understanding of what happens. There's a theory of negativity bias, where social modeling of rumors, overemphasis, faulty interpretation of science or pseudoscience is one. The other side, there's some evidence of motivation, for fear reasoning, as well as amplification effect of media as potential mechanisms of this infodemic spread. And then we look at the psychology of misinformation during the pandemic. What we learn is to highlight social learning, attributional bias, other aspects of cognitive bias for the potential spread of this false news. And of course, we all know that social media, while it has this disadvantage, it has a double-edged sword, because while it can do this type of disinformation and stigma, it also can be used for fact-checking, public awareness, health surveillance, and health education. So we see that infodemic in this pandemic, we learn, has actually made the pandemic worse, makes it hard for people to make decisions, makes it hard for decision makers, health workers, and people have anxiety, depression, overwhelmed with emotion, and feel emotionally drained and unable to meet important demands. It can affect decision-making processes when immediate answers are expected and not enough time is allocated to deeply analyze the evidence. Of course, we know that there is no quality control. And of course, this makes this even more difficult. So what is the way forward? A role of digital health literacy. The WHO has taken this up. Now the WHO mentions the need for a comprehensive health education program that addresses the infodemic in COVID-19. Health literacy in any community involves out of understanding their respective health, which in turn aids them to become responsible individuals to lead to an optimally healthy life, and of course, the autonomy being taken on. The lacunae of health literacy among the public increases stigma, myths, and misconceptions, particularly in this case related to COVID-19. So, proper information sharing, health communication through mass media, along with community aid in health, community can aid in health literacy. So there is an initiative that the WHO has brought forward with improving digital health literacy. Okay, so WHO has identified that this COVID-19 is one of the greatest threats to public health, and the public response has been affected by the global infodemic or misinfodemic, never seen before. A probable, I suppose we think this is a probable price to pay for globalization. Overabundance of information can cause information pollution, where it becomes difficult to tease out what is authentic particularly at a time of crisis when there isn't reliable sources. Apart from misinformation contributing to mass hysteria, panic, anxiety, and so forth, faulty treatments, competitive healthcare, and non-compliance to precautionary measures, these are the issues that increases the burden on public health, and so in fact has a negative impact on the pandemic itself. So in conclusion, the lessons learned throughout this COVID pandemic can help us make, I spoke about a post-COVID ethics. How will that look? What should be there? What should we have learned? And so that we could use the pandemic can be a positive legacy for bioethics. But we can also help make public health and social media both symbiotic and indeed mutually stronger. Integrating the role of social media in public health promotion can help facilitate better psychosocial and indeed global well-being. Thank you very much for your time and listening to me.
Thank you very much, sir. We will now have the opening remarks by our guests of honor. We will begin with Dr. Shabir Amanullah, sir. I welcome you, sir.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, sir, you're audible.
Wonderful. Thanks, Russell. We can summarize everything that has happened in the last many years in a quote from a guy called Potter Stewart. He says, ethics is knowing the difference between what you have a right to do and what is right to do. We have often assumed that those who have power, those who have wealth, those who are male, have the right to decide what happens to every other person. And despite years of progress, we haven't moved very much. We are still stagnated, especially when it comes to the rights of women, research, the poor, drug trials. It's often been a big issue. Conferences often raise very eloquent statements about what we need to do. And the current climate conference going on in Glasgow, everybody makes all these very tall claims and statements. Nothing really happens. I think, honestly, for the first time in human history, have so many people, so many like-minded people gathered together to not just take the pledge, but to actually move forward with teaching new generation students, but also reminding ourselves about the fundamental importance of human rights. This has never happened before, and technology made it happen. And despite all the negativity about COVID, and I'm not saying that COVID is great, COVID has not just brought us together, but it has raised so many more questions that otherwise would have been swept very conveniently under the carpet. So it's kudos to those who have taken the effort, those who have contributed, but more importantly, a lot of the younger students who have made an effort to take this to heart and roll it out in a manner that's befitting to those we owe our services to. So I wish you all very well, and congratulations to Professor Russell and his team. It's a true honor to be part of this. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Shabir, sir. I now call upon Dr. J. Jailal, sir, to give his opening remarks.
Thank you very much, Shreya. Distinguished the great philosopher and great motivator for bioethics in India, Professor Dr. Russell, the distinguished Professor Dr. Ved Prakash, and the chief guest and other distinguished members of the Bioethics Forum. I'm extremely delighted to be participate in this program and give the felicitation for a few reasons. One is to looking at the growth and metamorphosis of Shibu Joshi from our JDN member to today seeing him as an international chair of the students program. I think that is how a young youth of bubbling enthusiasm could be transformed into a leader in the bioethics by the magical hands of Professor Russell, Dr. Mary, Dr. Derek, and all the other distinguished leaders. It is a joy to us. It is a treat to know from Indian Medical Association perspective that we are not only the partners, now we are able to even produce leaders in the bioethics in the international arena. That is a great joy for me. And also, if at all, I feel is one of the worst thing to happen on pandemic is the Russellization process in India is little slowed by the non-availability of Dr. Russell in India for the last 2 years. I think he was with us for a bioethics program in my own place, Kanyakumari, long back, and that is the last program. And after that, we are only seeing that internet, in the webinars, and not able to see is that infectious contacts in the people. But still, that has been transformed and carried forward by very dynamic and very enthusiastic people like Madam Mary, Dr. Derek, and other distinguished leaders. Indian Medical Association is really happy to see this ethos being organized for the fourth time. In here, we all now fortunate and very happy on the Indian Medical Association perspective. One of the very vibrant leaders who has initiated this bioethics concept, Professor Ved Prakash Mishra, is able to give much more time for IMA in various other issues, various other challenges we are facing. Dr. Russell was talking about distributory justice. Since he is not able to be borrowed or carried away by bioethics activities, now we are able to get justice from Professor Ved Prakash Mishra for various other activities, various other issues which we are facing in this country. And I must thank for that distributory justice. It's effectively working with Ved Prakash Mishra is helping us a lot in issues on that. I'm really thankful to this initiative taken by Professor Russell, and the UNICEF bioethics concept, which has now definitely percolated into the minds of doctors, medical students, and the administrators. Wherever we go, wherever either it's the medical college teachers or the medical students or our Indian Medical Association activity, at least some concept of bioethics, some issues of the bioethics being discussed, talked, and people are very much eager to understand it. Not only understand it, Indian Medical Association is able to imbibe the character of following it. One of the many conferences, many professional conferences, there are either a topic on a bioethics or ethical dilemma or how to face. So this has now become a part of it. So that is a great change now we are going to introduce into the mindset of this. Such a conferences, such a webinars where there is international participation is there and they are able to get from the input and lead from other countries, definitely it will augment well for the growth of this concept. This we are not doing for any record sake or not for just saking in a paper that we are doing a webinar, but with a real concern. I think what Shiva Joshi or Shreya or Akshay are doing, it's a real concern to reach out to the medical students or reach out to the youngsters. I think that is why it has resulted in 25 countries are participating in this. I'm sure this passion and this flavor of the bioethics will be able to get imbibed into the minds of the young people, and definitely we will be able to get a very positive response in the future. It is not like that our era, all the 3 decade or 4 decade era, where we had a very little challenges, very little outside streaks which were carrying us away. But today they are getting a plethora of challenges which are facing the medical students. On one hand, the growth of internet, the SpaceX, the Tesla, and the Elon Musk statements that if you are a college dropper, come to me, I will make you a great man, and that kind of a fantasy-like world which has been exposed to them. On the other hand, they face the people suffering with COVID, coming to the hospitals in a difficult situation, not able to provide a space, not able to provide drug, dying in front of us. The hospital doctors are being attacked. That is a very, very painful situation they are facing. And in every world, whether it is in webinar world or in any other There is a lot of challenges that medical students are facing. On that count, the principles of autonomy, principles of beneficence, principles of justice, if that has to be followed, someone has a strong foundation. Otherwise, it is easy for them to carry it away. So we are living in an era where we need to inculcate the principles of bioethics very strongly into the mind of the people, and very good foundation has to be made. A good beginning was started in India by our Professor Ved Prakash Mishra by introducing the ATCOM module, where we are able to directly teach this concept to the medical students. I'm sure that will be carried further, and Dr. Vassal was able to introduce this ATCOM module in the national board examinations also. Now everybody is trying to talk, but we need to go one step ahead and make it as a practically, it's not a theoretical, we practically accepting that and adapting that to the level we need to go ahead. So I'm sure this webinars has paid a platform, but that will not be good enough. We need to definitely organize some hand-holding or model or symbiotic, meaning that simulative events areas where that people will be get benefited. I really appreciate Ethos. I mean, so happy, so elated to be with you at this moment. We assure our full-hearted support from Indian Medical Association for all the initiative which has been taken by the bioethics international activities, especially Professor Russell. And I just close with a strong invitation to Russell sir. If once the Australia is opened up, please visit India, and we are happy to welcome you and have you with us physically in India in the days to come. Thank you very much for this wonderful opportunity.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jaila sir. I will now welcome Professor Joseph Thornton to give his opening remarks.
Well, thank you very much. It's an honor and privilege to be here with the Ethos conference. Like the other speakers, I recognize the energy, enthusiasm, and hope we get from seeing the students and the privilege of working with student leaders from around the world, knowing that they'll be influential within their own countries and as a group internationally. It's good to see a consensus that we can articulate that ethics is a verb, that it's we don't just study ethics that or analyze ethics or talk about ethics, but it's a practice, and it's a challenge in practice for all of us. And as Professor D'Souza pointed out, there's new opportunities. With the students, we know that we need to provide training opportunities that prepare them for the post-COVID world or for the years ahead. We've learned many lessons in our careers, and we have tools to help them access information. So, for example, one of the things that happened in COVID is that we had a richness of information that was difficult to keep up. And one of our cognitive strategies was to read the headlines or to read the abstracts and make our decisions based from that. And it's efficient, but it can be fraught with error, or it can reinforce rigidity in thought. So how do we protect ourselves against that? So we find that in order to practice ethics as a group and for our international solidarity, we still have to take time for ourselves. I was pleased to see opening with a prayer, and we each need to develop our own habits on how we can spend time within our own minds, within our own selves, our own soul, so that we can bring that authenticity to others. So I appreciate being able to participate and look forward to the activities ahead. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Joseph. I will now welcome Professor Kristen Jones to give her opening remarks. Ma'am?
Thank you so much. I echo the sentiments of my colleagues here today. It is an honor and a privilege to be part of Ethos 2021. I started my day today, which was yesterday for most of you, with the opportunity to lead a workshop. And I'm ending my day here today with this inspiring inauguration ceremony. I really look forward to the opportunity to join you again during the week for a talk on resilience. And I wish to extend really sincere congratulations to the conference leaders and team members for such a well-organized and thoughtful agenda. I have to say, I've been to many conferences over the years, and this is impressive. There's a saying that it takes a village to raise a child, and I think it really takes a village of dedicated and hardworking individuals to plan an international conference of this caliber. So I really extend my gratitude to all of you for what has been created for Ethos 2021. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kristen ma'am. I will now welcome Dr. Rajiv Tandon sir, our chief guest for the day, to address our delegates with his words of wisdom. Dr. Tandon sir.
Can you see my screen?
Sir, we can see you. I think you will have to share your screen.
Okay, I am sharing my screen, but you're obviously not seeing it, right?
Yeah, we can see it now. Yes, sir.
You can see it now. Excellent.
Yes, sir,
Excellent.
it's visible.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, greetings, actually. Kirsten, by the way, I want to congratulate you. You didn't let people know that it's 11 o'clock your time at night and in the late evening, if you will. So amazing. How you'll have to share your secrets about being as energetic as you are at this time. Greetings, everybody. I mean, all over the world. And I know many of the delegates are in India, but we have people from all over the world. So greetings from the United States. What I want to touch upon, you've got a absolutely spectacular conference ahead of you. Actually, it's already begun. It began yesterday. But what I want to share with you over the next 20 minutes or so are my thoughts about the intimate relationship between professionalism and medical ethics. As I see it, professionalism is absolutely at the cornerstone, the center in terms of good medical practice, ethical medical practice. And allow me to share some of my thinking with you. Now, can I advance the slides or will you advance the slides? I don't know how I do that.
Sir, I think you, yeah.
Okay, yeah, thank you. And so this is what I'm going to share with you over the next 20 minutes or so. I'm not going to spend much time on the tenets of medical ethics because that's something that you're going to be discussing over your 5-day conference that began yesterday. But I will touch upon professionalism and share with you why I think professionalism is at the very core of ethical practice. But as part of professionalism, we need to understand what our commitments are, what our obligations are. So what is our contract with society? But this is a relationship and society has certain obligations to us. Now, I think COVID has certainly highlighted some of the challenges, both in terms of our ability to discharge our obligations, as also highlighted gaps in society doing what it needs to do in terms of its relationship to us. And Dr. Jayapal spoke about some of the challenges. And so I want to touch upon that and then conclude with a couple of thoughts with my 40 plus years of practice. So let me actually start with, this is not new to you. I mean, this is what you've been, and this is what you will be discussing over the next 3 days as well. The basic, Dr. Russell spoke about the 15 issues articulated, but the essence really is autonomy, beneficence, non-maleficence, and justice. And really, none of these principles outweighs any other. They're all important. In particular clinical situations, one may be more important or less important than the other. And so it's important to optimize the balance in every clinical situation. But let's touch upon professionalism. What are the basic principles of professionalism? The core principles of professionalism, just three really. One, the primacy of the patient. We talk about the multiple stakeholders in the practice of medicine. Certainly there are payers, insurance companies, government, a whole range of pharmaceutical companies. But the core relationship, the key relationship is the physician and the patient. And the patient welfare has to be primary in the context of this clinical contract. So that's at the very core of professionalism. You serve the interest of the patient. And this is the basis of trust, which unfortunately these days, that is one of the things that is eroding. It has been eroding over the past half century. And I think some of the challenges that we face in the practice of medicine has to do with the erosion of trust, which is really at the fundamental core of the physician-patient relationship. And the basis of this trust is altruism, serving the interests of the patient. And as we think about it, there are a number of factors, number of forces that make it difficult for us to practice in a way that emphasizes the primacy of patient welfare. There are market forces. Oh, this patient cannot pay for this. Or there are capitalistic, all societies are have become increasingly market-driven, capitalistic, with capital or money being the currency of value. And so, but the primacy of patient welfare should not be compromised by market forces, should not be compromised by societal pressures. Oh, get rid of this patient. This patient is a burden to society, or this person is costing us too much. This person is causing too much difficulty. Take them away. Or administrative exigencies. One of the things, a slight digression here, one of the major challenges, if you will, in terms of our practice is the whole issue of convenience. My convenience, the convenience of my healthcare system that I work for, if I'm employed, convenience at the expense of patient welfare, if you will. And so critical that this fundamental principle of the primacy of patient welfare be recognized. Two, it's the patient's life. I'm the doctor. I might have the knowledge, I might have the training to understand why the person presenting, who's come to me for help, is having some pain or discomfort or is not functioning well, or what might be wrong with what part of his body or mind, if you will. But it's the patient's life. This is something that it's taken me as a physician some time to fully appreciate. It's not my life, it's my patient's life. And my job is to provide the best care that I can to my patient. I must be honest, just because I think a particular decision is the right decision does not mean I only share partial information with the patient. Dr. Thornton spoke about one of the challenges, one of the learnings from our experience with COVID. Physicians, healthcare practitioners, governments feel that everyone should get vaccinated. I've got a booster. I've been vaccinated and I've got a booster. I think everyone should get vaccinated. I think that's the right thing. That's a good thing. But if I only share information with people that essentially supports this particular recommendation of mine, and I don't share other information with them, I'm not being honest. Because ultimately, people have to make choices. It's their life. It's my patient's life, not mine. So be honest. I want to empower them to make informed decisions about their care. Now, this takes time. This takes energy. This is not a straightforward thing because obviously, as physicians, it's easier for us to understand complexity of clinical decision-making process. It's harder for the patient. The patient will never know everything that we know, yet it's important for us to provide them with honest information that will empower them to make informed decisions about their care. And ultimately, what the patient decides about his or her care should be paramount. I might be very clear, you must get this particular part of your body removed, excise this part of your body, or do this, take this medication, take this chemotherapy regimen, if you will. But it's the patient's life ultimately. And it's important for me to respect their decisions as long as those decisions are not inconsistent with ethical practice and appropriate care. And finally, a third principle, key core principle, is social justice. And essentially, healthcare resources. We as physicians have a responsibility for fair distribution of healthcare resources and the elimination of discrimination in healthcare. These are the basic principles of professionalism. So with that, let me actually share what are our commitments. So as part of a relationship, the two parties make commitments to each other and have obligations to each other. So what are my commitments? As a physician, what are our discipline's commitments to society? I came into medicine in 1974. So it's been almost 50 years since I entered the portals of the All India Institute of Medical Sciences in New Delhi, where I did my medical training. And when I came in, this is what I was taught I was supposed to do. That this is what it meant to be a physician. These were my commitments as a professional. I needed to learn, increase my knowledge, skills, how to operate, how to perform surgeries, how to suture, how to take it in. So skills and knowledge. That was my job, to become as competent a physician as I could be. So that was the key. Secondly, I learned that science is primary, that essentially I have an obligation to utilize all scientific knowledge and uphold scientific standards. If I have a responsibility to generate new information, but to do good research, useful research. There are ethical principles of research, which I'm not going to get into. That would be a digression. But if those of us who actually do any kind of research should recognize those obligations, the most important being that whenever you do research, there has to be a potential value to society. It's not about publishing papers. It's not about getting fame, but it's really doing something that at least has the potential of doing good for society. Yeah, and then I practice and develop my practice patterns, practice guidelines based on the best scientific evidence and the experience that I accumulate over years of my practice. And finally, I was taught that I have an obligation to my profession, that I have a responsibility to basically make sure that my fellow physicians, that my other professionals are doing the right thing, that they have the competence that is needed for them to do what they do, and that they're generating research which is ethical, which is potentially useful. And I have a responsibility towards regulation of my profession, and I will treat my fellow professionals with respect, and we collaborate, if you will. It's not a competitive relationship. Now, this was 50 years ago. This is what I was taught. These are my commitments. Actually, my commitments are a lot more. And so certainly professional competence, the whole issue of scientific knowledge and professional responsibility, very, very important. But there are other responsibilities that I have. Honesty with patients. I cannot bias patients or manipulate the information that I provide them because I want them to do a certain thing. I might have a very clear idea of what I think is best for them, and I should share that with them. I have a responsibility to do that. But I have a responsibility to share complete information with them, empower them to make decisions that affect their lives. Be honest with my patients. It's their information, not mine. And so it's critical that I maintain patient confidentiality. Obviously, this is something we talk about a lot. Proper relationship with patients, boundaries. It is a professional relationship. I'm the doctor. I have a professional responsibility to my patient. That is the relationship. I have an obligation to continually improve quality of care of the system that I work in and my own care of each patient that I serve. And one of the things that I would share with you, having come into this profession almost 50 years ago, we all tend to ossify. We all tend to think that we've learned it and now we're experts in the field because we've been practicing for a while. I still make mistakes. I mean, I hate admitting it, but I've been practicing my specialty for 40 years, and yet 40 plus years, and yet there are some misjudgments. I need to keep learning. I need to keep doing better. My knowledge base should not be stuck at 20 years ago, or certainly not stuck 40 years ago when I did my residency training. I need to keep up with the literature. So that is critical. And I need to critically examine the impact of what I do. I need to continually improve quality of care. I have a responsibility to improve access to care. So one of the things as a physician I can think about is, whoever comes to me, I'll provide the best care. But if many people in society don't have access to good care, that's okay. That's not my problem. No, I have a responsibility. And that's the justice principle. It's important there be a just distribution of the limited resources, the finite resources that we have, that we bring to healthcare. I have conflicts of interest. All of us have conflicts of interest, and it's important to be aware of them. And for me, there are a number of ways, a number of codes of ethics. There are a number of ways in which I need to be monitoring, be aware of conflicts of interest, be transparent about those conflicts, because trust, again, critical. Why is trust diminishing? In part, we have contributed to it. We physicians have contributed to some of the erosion in trust, and we can rebuild it. But that is, and one of the things that we must do with regard to rebuilding that trust and maintaining it is managing conflicts of interest. Of course, the things that I mentioned earlier that I learned were important when I came into the profession, competence, scientific knowledge, and professional responsibilities are still very relevant. So those are my commitments. With that, what is the contract? What is medicine's contract with society? What is my contract with society? Very big. My role is that of a healer. I cure if I can. I prevent if I can. I certainly try to limit pain, distress, dysfunction to the extent I can. And if nothing else, I comfort my patient. Very, very important. I'm a healer. That is the role of a clinician. I tell my obligation to society, I will achieve and maintain proficiency of knowledge and the level of skill in my area of practice. I will not practice outside my area of expertise. I will not practice in areas that I have not kept up with my knowledge or skill base. I will provide for the patient's needs ahead of my own. Very important. Now, we all talk about, we have to have work-life balance. I'll touch upon that briefly when I get to society's commitment to us. But this is an obligation we take on. This is part of our contract. We provide access to needed care. We behave with morality, integrity, and honesty. We all have code of ethics. Unfortunately, many of these code of ethics are in writing, if you will. It's not about talking about stuff. It's not about, basically preaching. It's really what we do. One of the things I will share with you is we have 3 children, 3 wonderful children. And it took me some time as a father to recognize that, when I kept telling my children, do this, don't do this, they do this, this is the way to do it. They really, why did they listen? I mean, I'm so sensible, I'm so experienced. And then I realized that my children did what they see me do. All of us as physicians, as medical students, as residents in training, as early career physicians, we see what our seniors do. We practice as they do. And so it's important for us to actually take the code of ethics seriously and live the code of ethics. Be trustworthy. Very important. Show respect for my patient's dignity and autonomy. Be a source of objective information and advice. Promote the public good. And be transparent and accountable. One of the things that it took me some time to understand as a physician, I kept thinking, I'm a good man. I've tried to learn the best I can. I've trained hard. I keep trying to learn. I read. I try to improve my skills, and I do the best I can for my patient. Why should someone actually hold me accountable for stuff? Why should anyone be judging what I'm doing? I'm doing the best. Heck, you stay away. No, I am accountable. And that's an important thing. I need to be transparent. I need to be accountable. With that, what are society's obligations to us? And this is important. This is a two-way street. And in my almost 50 years now in the profession, one of the areas in which I have tried, not successfully much of the time, but I keep pushing, is I keep pushing the system out there, whether it's government, whether it's legislators, whether it's community leaders, if you will, to basically live up to their obligations to me, to my profession, so that we can live up to our obligations to society. You've got to trust us. You've got to give me autonomy. If you micromanage everything that I do, if you tell me I've got to record this, and this, this is what you must document, check all these 57 boxes off, you are limiting my autonomy. Allow me and my brethren to regulate my profession. And then society has an obligation to help with ensuring justice. Create and maintain a healthcare system that is value-based, adequately funded, and reasonably flexible. I'm aghast at the way the healthcare system in India, for example, is set up. I trained at the All India Institute of Medical Sciences. I'm very familiar with the healthcare system there. I'm quite familiar with the healthcare system in many countries. And in many, many countries, it's inadequately funded, it's not flexible, and it's not value-based. Medical professionals, practitioners have an important role to play in the creation of public policy. We have to push ourselves too. It's not as though people are going to invite us to say, why don't you make decisions? Why don't you take this on? We have to push too. We have a responsibility to do that, but society has to kind of facilitate that. Require that members of society also have some responsibility for their health. If I smoke, if I choose to smoke, well, that's my choice. I can do that, but it's going to adversely impact my health. And so we've got to kind of, require that members of society have accept some responsibility. I have the right to lead a balanced lifestyle. Unfortunately, this is not something I learned until recently. I used to work 100 hours a week. Now, that's not smart. That's not sustainable. That is not good for my health. And actually, it's not good for the health of my patients either, if that's what I do. It's important for me to have a balance. My wellness is important, and in order that I provide the best care for my patients. And I have a right to, a society owes me some rewards, financial, but very important, non-financial as well. Give me the presumption of doing things benignly. Trust me, I am doing my best. Give me that respect. Give me that recognition, if you will. The last thing I want to kind of end on, if you will, is some of the things that I have found, not work very well, if you will, in the course of my career. One, it's taken me some time to learn this. And even today, I see many of my practitioners make decisions disregarding the priority of my patients, of the patient. The patient says, doctor, I would not like to have this particular side effect. I know I might live a year less, but I do not want to have this particular complication because it will compromise my quality of life. Well, we have the obligation to provide full information to the patient, but I've got to respect his or her choice as long as they are, reasonable and ethical. It's important for me not to override the patient's autonomy. I still see that happen. Now, I'm a psychiatrist. And so one of the challenges for me in my practice is that some of the patients have significant impairment of their mental capacities, which impairs their ability to make rational decisions. That's something I have to factor in. So it puts me as a psychiatrist in a more difficult situation, if you will, but I still have to respect the patient's autonomy, and I still have the responsibility to live up to my commitment to be honest and transparent. Another thing that we've seen, and with artificial intelligence, the electronic healthcare record and things of that sort, one of the challenges is our connection to the patient is decreasing. I mean, unfortunately, I will share this with you. In the United States and in many Western countries, the patient comes in to see me. Even before they see me, I've ordered 20 tests, 30 tests. The history, the examination, the interaction with the patient, if you will, the physician-patient relationship, which is so key, which is so central, its value is not being recognized as technology is overpowering the empathic aspects of medicine. Breaching confidentiality, that's something I see a lot of. I see, in lack of adequate attention to providing, providing equal care to everybody. And I see aspects of dishonesty, particularly if it involves my convenience, if you will. If something is inconvenient, although it might be the right thing to do, I see some hesitation among many physicians, unfortunately, with regards to doing the right thing. So with that, let me conclude by emphasizing the importance of recognizing what professionalism is, what our commitments to our patients, to society at large is, and really expecting society to do its bit with regard to enabling what we do, to facilitate what we do. You've got an outstanding program ahead of you in which I know you'll be addressing the issues of the impact of COVID on medical education. And I know there are specific topics in India, in Latin America. There are sessions devoted to that. You're going to be discussing how can we learn ethical practice more effectively while using the narrative. There are a number of symposia on artificial intelligence and the governance of artificial intelligence. I know there are 2 special sessions on that, ethical concerns in different aspects, in different areas in medicine. And then you're going to conclude on Tuesday with a review of ethical pearls, if you will, that some of the leading experts in the world are going to be sharing with you. So I wish you well. It's an incredible profession that we have chosen. We are fortunate that society still trusts us, gives us the respect. Although some of it has been lost, we still have much of it. We can do our bit in terms of rebuilding what we have lost. All the very best to you in the practice of our profession. And again, the very best to you in this conference. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Dr. Tandon, sir. We have a question in the chat box, and I'll read it if you permit me.
Can you read the question?
Yeah. She says, could you please comment on a physician's advocacy role on behalf of the patients and its ethical limits?
Well, I mean, we do advocate for the patient. We have to. We have a responsibility for that. So, for example, when my patient is told by his insurance company or her insurance company, we don't pay for this medication, we can't afford this, and I think that particular medication is what's best for this patient, I basically spend time arguing, discussing, debating with the insurance company about the need. So we absolutely have a strong responsibility, a big responsibility to advocate for individual patients. I also have, I believe, and this is what I live, advocate for the breadth of professions that my specialty treats. I have a particular responsibility of that. So advocacy is a key function, if you will.
Thank you so much, sir. I think that answered Dilkur's question. I would now like to welcome Dr. Ved Prakash Mishra, sir, for his inaugural keynote.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Thank you very much, Shreya. At the outset, I deem it my pleasure and privilege alike to compliment Dr. Shiv Doshi and his entire team for taking up this mantle of responsibility and dispensing it so elegantly. In organizing this very meaningful, focused, timely and relevant conference, which I'm sure is going to generate a benchmark of its own. Learned Professor Dr. Russell D'Souza, a mentor to me, esteemed Dr. Jailal, learned National President of Indian Medical Association, the chief guest for the day, whom we just heard in terms of his keynote address, Dr. Rajiv Tandon, respected Dr. Joseph Ontan, learned Dr. Kirsten Jones, my esteemed colleague, Mary Matthew, members of the organizing team, learned faculty resource persons, ladies and gentlemen. I feel myself privileged to be talking to this erudite congregation in terms of this key address, which I'm wanting to be putting across on the theme, humanities, the real face of medical education. Ladies and gentlemen, health being taken as a fundamental right accruable to every global citizen in this world, it is extendable only through an efficacious and meaningful healthcare delivery system. The efficacy and efficiency of that healthcare delivery system is totally dependent on the efficacy and efficiency of the trained health manpower, which is expected to carry that mantle of responsibility. And the onus of generating that efficacious, efficient, well-meaning, humanistic, trained health manpower for the actualization of health as a fundamental right accruable to every global citizen, it is vested in the medical schools across the globe. And in the medical schools as a throughput, what exactly are the operational mechanics and what are the operational mechanisms which are put into place for the generation of this efficacious trained health manpower? And it is in this context, ladies and gentlemen, the importance of face and facets of medical education, which is to be imparted to the various young professionals for the purpose of making them trained, oriented, and capable. In this context, I'm wanting to put across two things very candidly. When we talk generation of the trained health manpower, do we mean fossilized trained manpower? Do we mean confident and competent trained manpower? Do we mean manpower that will be in a position to handle that responsibility mechanically? Or we contemplate to generate that trained manpower, which will be able to decipher the ethos of the medical profession, that it is not a profession, it's not a business, it's a calling. Whether the spirit of that calling is expected to be lived by him or her in the realistic sense or not is a $1 million question. And therefore, what I'm wanting to put across is the Australian spirit, which is incorporated in medical profession, until and unless it gets translated into an humanistic approach, perhaps it is not in the interest of men and mankind, neither it is in the interest of medical profession as a whole. This transformation, which makes me say that if I were to define medical profession in my humble little understanding, I will categorically say that it is medicine of the human beings, by the human beings, and for the human beings. The Trinity is very loud and clear. Medicine of human beings has to be for human beings, and therefore it will be by human beings. In what way? What will be the approach? What will be the modality? And that approach and modality is an approach of humanism. What we call is an approach of ethicality, approach of morality, and approach of value-based ethos. It is in this context, it is imperative that we have to decipher the significance of humanities incorporated in the medical education. The real face, and therefore the theme that I'm wanting to advocate for this today's keynote address is, what is the real face of medical education? In my humble understanding, with great conviction, I'm in a position to put across humanities turns out to be the real face of medical education. Precisely when the International Medical Graduate Contemplation was made and the objectives which were set out, that with the registering qualification, what the medical education will be intending to create the young minds as. It was very categorically said that the character that will be generated of the medical registering practitioner out of the entire teaching and learning in the medical schools, resulting in conferment of the graduate degree, entitling him to be registered for the purposes of practicing of the profession, there will be 4 important C's which will be required to be incorporated in him or her. And those 4 C's were defined as: first C for competence, second C for confidence, but more important than that, there were 2 more C's which stand incorporated. It is not competence and confidence which is to be viewed in isolation. It has to be balanced with. If the fulcrum is expected to be the character of the physician, the 2 pans which are required to be balanced by that particular fulcrum is 2 C's on one side and 2 C's on the other side, equilaterally balancing each other. On one side of it, it is the competence and confidence, but on the other side of it, equally vital, important, significant, and very significantly relevant is the concern and the compassion. Therefore, the 4 important contours which I'm wanting to put across in the tenets of medical education is that its main focus, its aim, its objective, its goal, its target is to generate medical practitioners who are competent, confident, concerned, and compassionate. It is this balance, ladies and gentlemen, which ultimately is expected to be creating them for the purposes of dispensing 2 targeted responsibilities out of the profession. 1, humanization of the profession, and 2, socialization of the profession. These are the 2 cardinal goals which are required to be actualized in the realistic sense. And until and unless the training phase, the orienting phase, the learning phase is not appropriately incorporated with the ingredients which will be catering to this particular objective fulfillment as a cause, the things will be absolutely half done. And the graduates and the personnel that will be produced will be half-baked. It is in this context, ladies and gentlemen, incorporation of humanities in medical education has been one area which has been very significantly agitating the minds of the entire global community over a period of time. Last 60 years, the debate on incorporation of humanities in the entire profile of medical education has been paramount, has been significant, and it has come to very justified, meaningful, cogent, and credible conclusions. Humanities per se, ladies and gentlemen, is something which is derived from the Latin word humanus. What is the scope of it? What is the ambit of it? The scope and ambit of the word humanus, which is ultimately getting manifested in the form of humanities, is that it is an education which is meant for civilized man, cultured man. And this is exactly the crux of the issue which I'm wanting to put across. An education which is to be imparted to a civilized and cultured man, not for the purposes of making him more civilized and more cultured, but making him decipher the significance, the relevance, the importance of its objective translation into day-to-day dispensation, turns out to be the hallmark of humanities as an approach, humanities as a teaching, humanities as a concept, and humanities as an actualization in day-to-day dispensation. When I say this, it cannot come as a magic wand. It cannot just be incorporated, contemplating that in the due course of time and out of the natural consequences, it will be picked up and it will be imbibed. If you look into the traditional format of medical education spread over the last 100 years, then perhaps we find that in the name of advent of technology, in the name of advent of replication, multiplication, and in the name of advent of science, we find that the incorporation in structuring of curriculum got a sea change. The concept of humanity, the importance of humanities over a period of time, it became I can say it became something which was a part of the hidden curriculum. But then the need of the hour and the importance and significance and relevance of the humanities to be incorporated in medical education is that from the hidden curriculum, it is really brought to the forefront. And that forefront will be in terms of converting that into a happening curriculum. What we thought and what was operationally there in the hidden curriculum, it was imperative that it had to be brought into absolutely what we designate as happening curriculum in terms of 5 important dimensions, which we call as A, B, C, D, and E of humanities in medical education. What do I mean by this? When I say A, B, C, D, E of humanities in medical education as the face of it, it basically is an abbreviative manifestation where A stands for attitude, B stands for behavior, C stands for communication, D stands for diversity, and E stands for empathy. If the ambit of humanities in the context of medical education in terms of its core ethos and core values in terms of its core dimension is to be deciphered, then A, B, C, D, E of humanities in medical education contemplates inculcation of the desired attitude, working out the behavioral manifestation which is conducive to the dispensation of the targeted duties, efficacious communicative skills, incorporating and respecting the diversity and diversification which is going to be the hallmark of the entire operation, and being plagued by empathy and not just sympathy. And that is exactly the ambit which is required to be incorporated. Ladies and gentlemen, as a matter of fact, if you look at the entire dimension that we contemplate in terms of the profession, then we will be finding it has got four definitive contours. It has got a technical skill component. It has got a scientific tenet component. More than that, it has got a moralistic component, and simultaneously, it has got the humanistic component. The four important components which I am wanting to be making in order to be ensuring that the profession as a whole is constituting of what? It constitutes of four important parables. The parable of technical knowledge, the parable of the scientific understanding, the parable of moral incorporation, and the important parable of humanistic approach. These are the four cardinal facets which are required to be incorporated into the profession for the purposes of its operational practice. So if these are the facets which are required to be manifested, link each of these facets as an objective which has been set out. Confidence and competence, these are the objects which have been set out, especially in the context of knowledge and skill, referred to as the technical skills and the scientific temperament and scientific knowledge. But the entire context of humanistic skills and the contour of empathy, where exactly it is put across, it is in the domain of concern and compassion and blending of all four, making a competent professional, a confident professional, a concerned professional, and a compassionate professional turns out to be the face of medical education. Now, these dimensions of humanism and dimensions of concern, dimensions of empathy, dimensions of attitude, dimensions of behavior, dimensions of communication, all these are required to be inbuilt into the curriculum itself. And that curriculum is to have teaching and learning structured formulations in the curriculum for all the phases of learning. It is in this context, ladies and gentlemen, I deem it absolutely with a sense of humility and reverence, realizing the importance of incorporation of humanities, deciphering that humanities is the face of medical education, working out that in the name of the advent of the situation, the transformation which took place was something which was high-tech and no-touch approach, which was proving to be detrimental. The various concerns and challenges which arose in the contemporary world as a result of this transformation of medical education, quote unquote, it is high-tech, but it is no-touch, and that particular transformation is mandated in the interest of men, in the interest of mankind, in the interest of humanity, and in the interest of humanism. What is the way forward? The way forward was that this high-tech, no-touch model needs to be converted into high-tech and high-touch model. This is the desired conversion in the larger interest of men and mankind. What is the way forward to this conversion or this change, and what is the action contemplation for the purposes of actualization of this plan? Ladies and gentlemen, as the chairman of the academic council responsible for the academic framework of the regulatory body in India, I deem myself very fortunate that this particular task was undertaken by the academic council headed by me in the Medical Council of India, and we structured with the pain and effort of 3.5 years of time, right from 2015 till 2008, we were able to structure the competency-based medical education model. And in that, we incorporated the important aspect of humanities in the form of ATCOM module, AETCOM. I will be failing in my duty because it's not only the ideation which came to be translated in the Indian context to this particular approach by a team of Academic Council of Medical Council of India, but in this, I openly said that I take Dr. Russell, Professor Russell D'Souza as my mentor. It was one of my interactive discussions in the year 2015 that I have had with him in Delhi, that the discussion that I was doing with him was structuring of an ATCOM module. We had worked it out, ladies and gentlemen, and that ATCOM was Attitude and Communication module to be incorporated in the undergraduate medical education curriculum for India, and ensuring that this humanities dimensions get incorporated into the curriculum in various phases. The entire structuring was done. He suggested to me that this ATCOM module, why should it not incorporate the ethical component and the bioethical component in it? And believe me, his advice, his counsel, his intervention, I take it as absolutely a silver lining to the otherwise clouds. And the ATCOM module, which was originally structured by my academic council under my chairmanship as ATCOM, it got converted into AETCOM, wherein it was Attitude, Ethics, and Communication model, which has been incorporated into the competency-based medical education curriculum. And in all humility, I am so very happy to put it across to the learned gathering that from the year 2019-20, the competency-based medical education structured by the Academic Council of Medical Council of India with inbuilt ATCOM module, primarily incorporating the various dimensions of A, B, C, D, E of humanities, stands included in the curriculum. It has been worked out in the form of, it's spread over the entire phases. Total 140 hours of teaching allocation of hours worked out in 4 phases, 27 competencies defined, modular approach is structured. It has been worked out in terms of the required teaching, learning through various structured tools and techniques, and simultaneously it is blended with the progressive assessment, ensuring that learning is bound to be assessment driven if it is to be proved effective. And it is already being put into vogue nearly in 601 medical schools in the country, and the things have progressed. Now the batch which has been admitted in the year 2019 under the competency-based mode in the Indian context has passed out their first phase and they have entered into their second phase. I am putting this across, ladies and gentlemen, not because of a venture which has been undertaken by us in transformation of this particular facet of medical education in India. The purpose is, until and unless we will be able to humanize the profession, perhaps the real purpose that the profession intends to serve in the name of and to the cause of humanity, it will not be served. It can be served only better when we are in a position to put across training, orientations, learnings, demonstrabilities, generation of the skills, decipherance, understanding, clarity, grasp, and then translation into a real life settings, perhaps is going to be a reality. And therefore, it is imperative that humanities which were to be incorporated in the domain of medical education for the purposes of humanization of the profession. I am happy to share that in the Indian context, the venture which was mandated, I really take it as a destined responsibility which perhaps the Almighty has put on me and my team that we could dispense it. I take in all humility that as one of my debts which I was able to pay to the medical education in this country, what all I owe to it. I am sure that this particular transformation which has been worked out and which is inevitably to be worked out in order to ensure that the targeted purposes of out of the profession and the professional generated thereto, they are accomplished and they are dispensed in a cogent, credible, meaningful, targeted, focused, and exemplary manner, which is also emulative in character, is feasible and possible only when we are in a position to make our learners understand, decipher, work out for themselves, and then put across in terms of their day-to-day practice that it is the humanistic approach which is going to be the real solution, and not only solution, a real salvation to the suffering humanity, men and mankind. Therefore, ladies and gentlemen, on this occasion, I'm really recording my sense of gratitude and gratefulness to the organizers of this conference because they are propagating this cause. They are taking up this mantle of responsibility and putting this across to the entire world for the purposes of a desired change and a targeted transformation. This transformation is not only in the interest of profession and professionals, the larger interest of the society as a whole. That society, which is expected to be absolutely a civilized, cultured, decent, and dignified society, is legitimately entitled to humanistic approach, is legitimately entitled to human transactions, is legitimately entitled to human touch, is legitimately entitled to a humanistic dispensation in all spheres, in all ways, and in all walks of life. How exactly this legitimate expectation of the people at large in a civilized society is going to be met with, in order to ensure that these legitimate expectations are fulfilled, it is imperative that we work out the model of medical education, which is appropriately, which is suitably embedded with incorporation of these structured situations, so that they are put across in the form of teaching and learning and are getting converted into competencies and skills among the trained personnel, whereby they are able to avail them in a real life setting, making the entire targeted purpose getting fulfilled in a meaningful way, in a desired way, in a targeted way. And when I say meaningful, desired, and targeted way, my only baseline is in a humanistic way, in an ethical way, in a moralistic way, in a value-based way, whereby the real essence, as I said, the Australian spirit of modern medicine has to be ending in human extended touch. And that is going to be the real actualization of that spirit. For the purposes of translation of that realistic spirit into a realistic essence, humanities has to be incorporated to make everybody understand and decipher that facets of medicine are many. It could be in the domain of scientific skills, and it is. It is in the domain of technical skills, and it is. But it is also vitally and significantly in the domain of moralistic skills and humanistic skills. And that moralistic and humanistic skills turns out to be an essence which is carved out of the entire incorporation of humanities in medical education. Therefore, ladies and gentlemen, realizing the significance and the relevance of this, we have moved a step forward in India, and maybe that this is expected to be the incorporation which has to be all across. I take this opportunity of putting these stray thoughts of mine in the form of this keynote address to this learned gathering in order to only emphasize one thing. You remove humanities and you remove the extension to humanism from the medical profession, it will turn into a dull profession. It will turn into a dry profession, and it will turn into a drab profession. Then it will not be a profession of the medicine, by the medicine, and for the medicine. It will be of the robots, by the robots, and for the robots. And perhaps it will be fossilization of medical profession, resulting and being catering to a robotic society, which is not the case and which should not be the case. And therefore, this human society is entitled to humanistic and socialized medicine, which is possible, feasible, permissible, extendable only through humanities being incorporated in medical education. And therefore, my dictum that humanities is the real face of medical education to cater to the cause of humanity, humanism, men and mankind alike. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for patient listening. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bates. It's always a delight to listen to your lectures. I would like to once again express my gratitude to all our esteemed faculties and delegates who could join us today for the inaugural ceremony. We will conclude the inaugural ceremony now and begin with our events for the day. We have paper and poster presentations scheduled on platforms 1 and 2. So this one is platform 1, and you must have received the link for platform 2 on your email IDs. So paper presentation will continue on this platform and poster presentation will be on platform 2. Thank you for joining once again, everyone. I will now hand over to Dr. Shubham Gupta. Shubham, can you hear me?
Piyush, can you please check if you can unmute?
Yeah, I think he's not able to unmute himself. Can you check?
1 minute. I will also check. Shubham there? Yeah.
Yes. Hello, everyone. A very good morning. Welcome to our official Ethos conference. It's pleasure indeed to be a part of this organizing committee. I take a privilege in introducing myself. I am Shubham Gupta, Joint Organizing Secretary, Scientific Committee. Along with me, I have a team which is consisting of Mona and Charlie. We'll be starting with the paper presentation on this platform, and there will be breakout room where we'll be diverting the participants for a poster presentation. We also have with us Dr. Jyoti Batra, ma'am, who is judge for paper presentation for today. Ma'am, we welcome you all. Now, I would like to hand it over to Mona and Charlie. Charlie is muted, I guess.
Charlie Valvi, is it?
Hello, everyone. This is Shirley Valvi. Yes.
I just want to check if the presenters of poster are diverted to B room. Sure, can you please check?
Piyush, can you come in?
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah, Shubham, you can direct all the technical problems to Piyush.
Yes. Piyush, sir, can you please check if the presenters of poster are directed to B room?
Yes, I'm comparing the list right now.
Sure, sure.
Shubham, sir, it would be great if you just announce people over here.
Okay, then I'll do that. So for poster presentation today, we have Dr. Sujata. Is she here? Dr. Sheetal. Dr. Shubhangi.
Shubham, you might want to take their full
Dr.
names
Chet.
if they, like
none of
they
them
might
are
not
here.
realize. Yeah.
Shubhangi
Okay,
is
doctors.
in the other room.
Sorry?
Shubhangi is on B. Shubhangi is Atalle.
Sir, yeah, I'm taking out the names for B room for poster presentation.
Yeah, they're over there. All of them are there. The names you mentioned.
Achha, all of them are there?
Yes.
Okay, so then we'll start with the paper presentation, sir. I'll just read out the names of paper presenters. Charlie, can you start? Charlie, you there?
Yes, yes. Okay, so I would like to read out the rules. Can Mona please share the PPT for the rules and regulations?
Yeah, I'll share.
Okay, so guidelines for paper and poster presentation. So basically, the time allotted for each presentation will be up to 5 minutes and maximum up to 7 minutes. There will be dedicated 2 minutes of time for questions and discussion after the presentation from judges and the audience. The session presider will read questions submitted by the participants. Okay, the presentation will be live on Zoom with the judges and probably the audience. You will be asked to share your screen for the presentation. If you don't want to do it yourself, we can help you with that. Also, please turn on your webcam so that we all can see you. Yeah. So I would like to go ahead with. I would request Mona to please introduce the judges.
Yeah. Warm welcome to everyone. So it's my privilege to honor our judge for today's paper presentation event, Dr. Jyoti Batra ma'am. So is my screen visible?
Yeah, it's visible.
Okay. Professor Jyoti Batra ma'am is presently the Dean Research and has been associated as Professor of Biochemistry with Santosh College, to be University, Ghaziabad, for more than 23 years. Here she has delivered lectures, contributed in course enrichment, and supervised many doctoral researches. Dr. Batra has filed patents and copyrights and have published a rich number of research papers in Scopus, PubMed, Web of Science, and other index journals. During her tenure as research dean and a member of IQAC in Santosh, deemed to be university, she has counted multiple achievements. Some of them are headed Central Research Facility of the university and also headed the Research Ethics Committee and also more. She also has published a 40 research papers in index journals and earned more than 30 awards and honorary positions, including World Consortium of Universities. We welcome you, ma'am.
Thank you. Good morning and all the best to everyone. I hope I am audible and visible. First of all, I would like to actually thank Dr. Russell sir for giving us all the mentorship and all the team members, Dr. Shiv, Dr. Shubham, and his team. When they are doing a perfectly wonderful job, which is actually the requirement of the time. And I feel proud to be here. Thank you so much for making it possible for me, and all the best.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Now I would like the participant, Ms. Shakshi Kumari, to present. All right.
It is to be noted that the time limit, it is requested all presenters should abide by all rules and regulation and time limits which is granted to them. Failure to do so will lead to negative marking. Also, we are keeping a note of time, so please make sure that you're finishing it off on time. 7 minutes of presentation followed by 3 minutes of discussion. Thank you so much and best wishes to all the presenters.
Good morning, everyone. Am I audible?
Yeah. Sakshi, are you ready?
Yeah.
Mona, you can start time.
Yes.
Start.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Sakshi Kumari, a third year undergraduate student from Shimoga Institute of Medical Sciences. Today, I'm going to be presenting on the topic outcomes of COVID-19 patients and risk factors associated with the adverse outcomes longitudinal retrospective study in Shimoga, Karnataka. Introduction. COVID-19 is a current global pandemic caused by the newly discovered novel SARS-CoV-2 virus affecting 220 countries and territories. According to a study done in Andhra Pradesh and Tamil Nadu, it was found the majority of the patients who died were older, males, and had a comorbidity. Another global study done on 829 patients revealed the same. The objectives of our study are to estimate the proportion of different outcomes such as recovery, hospitalization, and mortality among COVID-19 patients, and to estimate the proportion and to determine various risk factors associated with COVID-19 adverse outcomes. Materials and methods used. The study was carried out in Shimoga, Karnataka. The study design is longitudinal retrospective study, and the study period was for 2 months, that is from April 20th, 2021 to June 20th, 2021. The study population was COVID-19 patients, and the sample size using the formula 4pq by d squared, considering 10% as non-responders, was calculated to be as 168. The method was collected by telephonic interview, and the ethical approval for the study was obtained from the institution ethics committee. The results are, this is a pie chart showing the percentage of males and females infected. It was seen the 93 patients, that is 55.4%, and 75, that is 44.6%, were males and females respectively. Here's a table showing the mean age and standard deviation of the patients. The mean age of the patients in our study was around 42. Association of age with hospitalization, it was seen that totally 18 patients in our study were hospitalized, of which 13 were above 60 and 5 were below 60. And using the chi-square test, we found it to be significant. Here's a bar chart showing the comorbidities present among patients. The different comorbidities in our study was diabetes, hypertension, cardiovascular disease, and pulmonary diseases. 57 patients, that is around 33% of the patients, had at least one comorbidity, of which diabetes and hypertension were the most common, followed by cardiovascular diseases and pulmonary diseases. 18 people were hospitalized, and 17 out of the 18 people that were hospitalized had at least one comorbidity. Here's a simple bar chart showing the outcomes in the patients. The different outcomes in our study was recovery, hospitalization, and death. The recovery rate in our study was around 91%. The hospitalization rate was around 11%, and death rate was around 5%. 8 people in a study died, of which 5 were males and 3 were females, and 7 out of 8 patients had at least one comorbidity, of which diabetes and hypertension were the most common. And 7 out of 8 people that died were above 60. Implications and conclusions. When compared to people without comorbidities, patients with comorbidities have worse results. Older age, comorbidities, and male gender will link to an increased hospitalization and mortality. Even though recovery rate is very high, significant, that is around 11% of number of patients need hospital admission in the disease course. Many COVID-19 patients' lives can be saved by effective monitoring of patients. Thank you.
Thank you, Sakshi. It was a good presentation. Yeah, so what were your variables you have taken? Can I ask just one question? I want to know. Your
variables as in the...
You said it is a longitudinal retrospective study, no?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so that's why I'm asking you.
We took age as one thing, age, comorbidities, and gender. These were the variables that we used in our study. Age, comorbidity, and gender.
Age, comorbidity. So what was the conclusion you got?
Ma'am, it was seen.
It was not very clear in your final slide.
Ma'am, it was seen.
A retrospective study, it should be crisp.
Ma'am, the final conclusion that we saw was that male gender, the hospitalization and the adverse outcome was seen more among males, and people who were and older people, that is above who were above 60, and people who had at least who had an comorbidities associated with them had an higher chances of having adverse outcomes, as in hospitalization and death. So that was the findings of our study, that male gender, comorbidities, and older age are the risk factors for adverse outcomes.
One last question, just last question. You said your average age was 42.
Yes, ma'am.
So how do you define the older age group in your study?
Ma'am, the average group was like we got the information from the triage, and we calculated the average age of the patient that were admitted, that were registered in the triage. So that was calculated to be 42. This means that most of the patients that came to the hospital were around 42, but the older patient, that is above 60, we mainly focused on and we took 2 criteria, like above 60 and below 60. So that is a difference.
Right, that is what I wanted to know. Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Sakshi. Again, I would like to read out the general criterias on which you will be judged, so that you are aware about it. So you'll be judged on originality, creativity, theoretical or clinical significance of research, creativity and originality of logic, timelines, and uniqueness of ideas. Then second, organization objective goals are clearly stated, methods are clearly outlined, results are clearly presented, thoughts and ideas flow in a logical manner. Third, procedure data based on adequate sample size methods, appropriate for achieving goals, uses correct and appropriate statistical methods, provide valid and reliable data. Next, neatness, materials are easy to read, materials are free of marks and smudges. Last, overall presentation, Materials are organized with smooth transitions, that is introduction, method, result, discussion. Style and language are appropriate to discipline. Charts, graphs, illustrations are appropriate to subject investigated. Conclusion are consistent with evidence. And please go slow so that our judges can hear. Thank you so much. Mona, can we call out the next participant?
Thank you, Sakshi. So I'd like to call upon the next presenter, Dr. Sujata Narayanan, to present now. Patience,
Can you call out the name again, Mona?
Yeah, Dr. Sujata Narayan.
Is Dr. Sujata Narayan there? Okay, Mona, you can call out the next name then.
Okay, we'll move on to the third spot. Who's present now? Miss Pooja Patre.
Yeah, Pooja Parthe is there. She's there.
They are able to unmute themselves, right, Shubham?
Yes, I guess Pooja is unmuted. Pooja.
Yeah. Okay.
Can I start?
Pooja, can you present your screen slide?
Sir, just a minute.
Yeah. Perfect, Pooja, we can see.
Can I start?
Yes, Mona, please note down. Please start, Pooja.
Can I start?
Yes, Pooja, you can start.
Good morning. I'll present a case report on superior mesenteric artery syndrome. There was a 27-year-old patient who presented to a casualty with symptoms of vomiting and epigastric pain and fullness, dull aching pain since 2 months. The vomiting was projectile and it was 1 hour postprandial. It was 1 hour post meals, and she had the symptoms since 2 months. There was no other comorbidity and there was history of weight loss. The patient has similar complaints in the past when the patient was pregnant 2 years before. We admitted the patient and the per abdomen examination was soft. There was no guarding, rigidity, tenderness, distension. Per abdo was soft. We had sent basic investigations for the patient. All the other investigations were normal except for HB, which was 9.7, and the patient was also clinically pale. The patient had done an outside CT A plus P and OGD scopy, but the CT A plus P was inconclusive for any diagnosis. And the OGD scopy was positive for rapid urease test, and there was antral gastritis in the OGD scopy, and the patient was positive for H. pylori. So she had also taken 14 days course of H. pylori. And then she came to a hospital after 1 month. The symptoms, the patient still had the symptoms. So we had done a repeat OGD scopy for the patient. So this time the OGD scopy was H. pylori negative, but antral gastritis was still present. So we did a repeat CT for the patient, and the repeat CT was also inconclusive for any diagnosis. But the patient's symptoms were getting worsened day by day. There was mild ascites which was present on the CT. So we had tapped the ascitic fluid, and we had sent TB gold, which came positive. Gene expert was MTB was not detected on gene expert of the ascitic fluid, but on TB Gold, the patient came to be positive. So we started AKT for the patient. The patient took AKT for 15 to 20 days, but the symptoms worsened and the patient became non-compliant. As we were not heading towards any conclusion, we finally did a repeat CT, and this was the third time that we were doing a CT for the patient. And this time, with our radiology meet and everything, we finally came to a conclusion that it was superior mesenteric artery syndrome, and the angle between the aorta and the superior mesenteric artery had reduced to 12 degrees, and the distance between the SMA and the aorta had reduced to 5.8 mm. So as we had the diagnosis, we had inserted NJ for the patient, and we prepared the patient for OT. We inserted NJ and we started feeds for the patient, so that as the patient was cachexic, she was not ready for OT. So we prepared the patient for surgery, and after 15 days, we did side-to-side duodenojejunectomy for the patient, bypassing the obstruction that was present around D3. On POD, on post-op day 5, we started liquid diet for the patient, and on post-op day 7, we started soft diet for the patient, and the patient had no episode of vomiting, and she was tolerating the diet. Then we discharged the patient by post-op day 10, and we followed up the patient at 1 week and 3 weeks. So the patient was completely free of any symptoms. She had no episodes of vomiting, and she was gaining weight also. And the patient was looking well. Thank you.
Piyush sir, can you please
Ma'am,
unmute?
please unmute yours.
Piyush sir, yeah, ma'am, you can say now.
Okay. Thank you, Pooja. It was a very good case study. I will just would like to know how you are going to make it beneficial to the rest of the patients you are going to get in your surgery department. I think you are from surgery department, if I'm sure. You are muted, Pooja.
Yes, ma'am.
You are okay. So, I mean, what do you see? This procedure can be taken up as a routine kind of a thing for this kind of syndrome.
Ma'am,
for the population. If I talk about general population.
Ma'am, the idea is that the symptoms of this patient were getting worsened day by day. For superior mesenteric artery syndrome, if the symptoms are mild, and if the obstruction is also subacute obstruction, if the patient is normal and if patient has no obstructive symptoms, and if there is mild vomiting, then we can the initial management is that we can start NJ feeding for the patient, so that we can bypass the obstruction and start feeding through the NJ, and make the patient lie on left lateral position post meals, and ask the patients to have small quantities of meals at short intervals of time. This is the initial management that we usually do for such patients. But this patient came to us like she had symptoms since 2 to 3 months, and she was getting cachexic, and there was gradual weight loss, and the patient was looking very pale and very weak. So we did not opt for any conservative management. We decided.
I do agree. Just one question.
Yes,
did you give the complete information that you are going to do this kind of treatment, which is not being regularly done? I mean, kind of a consent of the patient, and describe the whole.
Yes, ma'am. We for all the patients, we take consent before any surgery. We take consent of the patient, and we had explained this to the family, ma'am.
Change the course because
Yes,
you are going to change.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
you have to
We had explained this
Okay.
thing to the family, ma'am, that conservative treatment is not going to work in her case, and that anastomosis and bypassing the obstruction and duodenojejunal anastomosis is a must for the patient, and the family agreed for it, and the patient was completely all right post the surgery.
Okay. Thank you, Pooja.
Thank you, ma'am.
We can go to the next.
Thank you, Pooja Patri. So we'll next call upon the presenter, Chinmay Om Prakash Guralwar.
Hello, good morning. Is my screen visible?
Yeah. You can start now.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. I'm Chinmay Om Prakash Guralwar, a final year MBBS student at GMC Nagpur. Comparative study of complementary and alternative medicine used in patients of chronic kidney disease, pre-dialysis versus dialysis. So before we begin, there are two terms I would like you all to know. The first is complementary and alternative medicine, that is CAM. It is defined as a diverse medical and healthcare system, practices, products that are not generally considered to be part of conventional medicine. To give you a simple example is Ayurvedic medicine. Now let's move on to the second term, that is CKD, chronic kidney disease. It is defined as abnormalities of kidney structure or function present for more than 3 months with implications in health. Due to various comorbidities and the need for multiple medication, most of the CKD patients do not have a satisfactory quality of life, and they turn to CAM to manage several of their issues. Hence, it is important to establish the extent and pattern of CAM use in CKD patients so that the healthcare providers are better informed and advise their patients accordingly. So this study was planned with the following objective. First, to determine the prevalence and pattern of CAM use in patients of CKD. Second, to compare CAM use in pre-dialysis patients and patients on dialysis. This was a cross-sectional questionnaire-based study conducted in nephrology department of a super specialty hospital. The study was initiated only after the approval from the Institutional Ethics Committee. These were the inclusion and exclusion criteria. Enrolled patients were divided into two groups after obtaining the written informed consent. They were divided into two groups, group 1 dialysis and group 2 pre-dialysis. All patients were interviewed by a direct face-to-face interview. Their prescriptions were analyzed and information was entered in a self-designed, semi-structured, open-ended questionnaire. Now that we know why, where, and how this study was done, let's look at the results. So instead of boring you with all these tables and figures, I'll try to summarize my results. The study was carried out in 127 patients of CKD, of which 84 were on pre-dialysis and 43 patients were on dialysis. The average age of the patient in the pre-dialysis group was significantly more than in the dialysis group. All the other baseline characteristics were similar in both the groups. Majority of the patients in pre-dialysis group had CKD with hypertension, and in the dialysis group, the majority of the patients were of CKD alone. Ferrous sulfate was the most commonly prescribed drug in both the groups. Out of the total patient interviewed, 30 patients, that is 24% patients reported using CAM. Patients who used CAM in a pre-dialysis group were 19% and 32% in dialysis group. Majority of the patients in both the groups did not disclose the use of CAM to their regular doctor. Reason given by the patients for not disclosing the CAM use was that they did not feel it necessary, it was not asked by the doctor, and fear about doctor's reaction. There was no statistically significant difference between the two groups in any parameter. Ayurveda was the most commonly used CAM in both the groups. Friends, neighbors, and relatives were the most common source of information about CAM in both the groups. Questionnaire-based study usually administered a self-administered questionnaire. These have certain limitations, such as respondents may find it difficult to understand certain terminologies or may interpret some questions incorrectly. This can happen even after translating the questionnaire in vernacular languages. These limitations were overcome in this study as the respondents were interviewed by the investigators themselves. Out of the patient interviewed, CAM use was 19% pre-dialysis and 32% in dialysis. This is in contrast to another study that reported higher percentage of patients using CAM in pre-dialysis group. There can be various reasons for this large variation in CAM use. The major difference being the definition of CAM used in different studies. In this study, the respondents were not specifically asked about vitamin, minerals, and nutritional supplements, but none of them mentioned their use on their own. Hence, it is likely that patient may have been using other form of CAM not specifically addressed by this questionnaire. This may have resulted in underreporting of CAM. So the probable reason for Ayurveda and homeopathy being the common CAM used may be the belief present in the Indian population that these medicines are safe and effective for various chronic disorders in which modern medicine does not offer a satisfactory cure. A number of patients not disclosing CAM use to the regular physician was 81% and 57% in pre-dialysis and dialysis group respectively. Earlier studies have also reported the high proportion of patients that did not disclose the CAM use to the physician. The major reason for not disclosing CAM use in this study, as well as the earlier studies, was that doctor did not ask. Hence, it is suggested that the healthcare professional routinely inquire about CAM use as a part of their history taking at each follow-up visit. So to conclude, the use of CAM was similar in pre-dialysis and dialysis group, with Ayurvedic medicine being the most commonly used CAM. The matter of concern is that many patients who use CAM along with conventional medicine do not disclose CAM use to their doctor, hence increasing the possibility of potential drug interaction. It is also necessary that concurrent use of CAM and conventional medicine should be monitored for safety and efficacy. These are my references. Thank you so much for your time.
Chinmay, it's a very good study. I really like the idea because conventional medicine is actually being popular day by day. So I think the only part which I actually felt you can do a little better is the prevalence part. You only took how many patients? 127, I believe.
Yes, ma'am.
So 127 is actually a very small number to say the prevalence. So if you can do the study at different, stations, different colleges, different places, hospitals, it'll become a very good result-oriented study. Yeah. And the presentation was also good. So congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you, Chinmay. Next, I would like to call upon the presenter, Sijin Wilson.
Hello?
Yeah, hi.
Am I audible? Yeah. I'm not able to share my screen.
Yeah, you can present.
1 minute. Is my screen visible?
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Can I start?
Yeah, you can start now.
A warm good morning to all, respected judges and dear delegates. I'm Sijin Wilson, a final year MBBS student of Shimoga Institute of Medical Sciences, Karnataka, and I'm extremely delighted to present my research work titled The Test Positivity Rate, Contact Tracing, Vaccination Status among Patients Visiting Flu Corner or Fever Clinic of Megan Teaching District Hospital, Shimoga, Karnataka, a prospective longitudinal study. The study was done under the guidance of Dr. Raghavendra Somapad, Assistant Professor, Department of Community Medicine, SIMS, Shimoga. Introduction. Ever since December 2019, the coronavirus disease SARS-CoV-2 has been spreading and has become a public health emergency. The COVID-19 test positivity rate of Shimoga district was 9.71% on 13th June 2021. First phase of vaccination against the disease was begun by the Government of India on January 16. A study done on healthcare workers from Delhi who were vaccinated for COVID-19 reported mild symptomatic breakthrough infection. Another study reports that COVID-19 infections have occurred in vaccinated subjects and were few and of low severity. Studies on breakthrough infections among public and their severity have not yet been widely done in India. They help us to ascertain the protective efficacy of vaccines and identify the glitches in the vaccination program. Objectives of the present study were to estimate the COVID-19 test positivity rate in patients reporting to flu corner of Nagan Teaching District Hospital, Shimoga, to estimate the contact history and assess the symptomatic status of all the presenting cases, to estimate the rate of breakthrough infection and its severity. The present study was designed as a prospective longitudinal study and was carried out in the flu corner or fever clinic of Nagan District Teaching Hospital, Shimoga, for a period of 1 month, that is June 2021. The study population comprised of all patients who presented at the flu corner, and the sample size was calculated to be 234. Simple random sampling was employed and data was collected. Preliminary data were collected through in-person interviews at the flu corner, and we collected basic information and details, vaccination status, medical history, and contact history. The subjects were followed up after 2 days for the COVID test results, and people who were COVID positive were further followed up through telephonic interviews regarding type of treatment, duration, severity, and outcome of the disease till a documented clinical outcome. All data were collected after taking informed consent. Ethical clearance was obtained from the Institutional Ethics Committee of SIMS Shimoga. Data were made into a database, and statistical tests like percentage, proportion, and chi-square tests were employed. Coming to the results. The gender distribution of the sample, 56% of 234 respondents were male, while 44% were female. Coming to the test positivity rate among patients visiting the flu corner, our test positivity rate PCR for COVID-19 was 24%. This is far high compared to the district average. This can be because ours is a tertiary level healthcare center, so only severely symptomatic or severe cases of flu were presenting the flu corner. More than that, most of the asymptomatic contact and testing on demand was being done at the periphery of kiosks. Further, this also points to our healthcare facilities acting as a hotspot contributing to the super spread of COVID-19 disease. We found that false negative test on rapid antigen test, considering the RT-PCR test to be a better test, was 15.31%. When we assessed the contact history of the COVID-19 cases, that is 57 people who were positive, we found that 54.3% had no contact history. This points to large number of asymptomatic cases exist. This can be because of the larger number of asymptomatic cases in the society, carrier states, and smaller number of people who are getting tested. Active case detection has to be implemented. Symptomatic status of COVID-19 cases showed that 84% had a symptomatic history and 15.79% were asymptomatic. Further, chi-square test of significance showed that people who were contacts of known cases were more likely to get the disease, and people who were symptomatic at the time of presentation were more likely to test COVID-19 positive. COVID-19 vaccination status of patients visiting flu corner was 20% people were vaccinated with at least one dose of a government-approved vaccine. On 28th June 2021, the state of Karnataka had vaccinated 26.56% of its population with at least one dose of vaccine. This almost roughly corresponds. But when we assess the severity of infection among vaccinated individuals, we found that only 57 people were positive in our sample. Out of that, 7 people were vaccinated and 50 were not vaccinated. And of the 7 people who tested positive after being vaccinated, only 2 had moderate to severe infection. The criteria for deciding whether the infection was mild, moderate, or severe was like mild cases did not require any hospital admission or any oxygen therapy, remdesivir therapy, etc. And moderate to severe cases required high flow oxygen beds, remdesivir therapy, steroid therapy. The rate of breakthrough infection in our study following at least one dose of vaccination was 14.89%. This is far, far higher compared to what ICMR reports, that is 1 to 2%. Contradicting findings from most of the studies. In our study, there was no significant relationship between getting vaccinated and not contracting the disease. And we could not find any significant association between the number of doses of vaccines received and the outcome of COVID test. And there was no relationship between vaccination and severity of infection. In conclusion, the test positivity rate at our facility was much greater than that of the district average. Rate of breakthrough infection was high compared to the ICMR statistics of 2 to 4%. With less number of vaccinated cases, most having received only one dose, who are a part of our study, we found that vaccinations are not protective against contracting COVID-19 disease, nor do they decide the severity of infection. However, this is not conclusive enough to disregard vaccination in our fight against COVID-19. As of now, our weapons against the coronavirus disease are following COVID-appropriate behavior and vaccination. But surely these findings have to be followed up through further analytical studies, and the significance of association between vaccination and disease prevention has to be documented. Few limitations of our study are a small sample size, absence of consideration regarding the comorbid diseases, coverage of 2-dose vaccinated individuals in our sample was very less. These are my references. Let me conclude. Thank you. Have a very nice day.
Thank you, Sujin. Very interesting data you have presented. Only thing which I wanted to know, are you still following these cases?
No, ma'am. No.
They are just now, the study is complete from your...
Yes, ma'am. The Department of Community Medicine here is further doing up different studies. But as of my part, it's done.
Okay. And what kind of analytical studies do you suggest?
Ma'am, we need to do a case control study or a cohort study. We need to get equal number of vaccinated and unvaccinated individuals who fall under the same comorbidities. We have to follow them.
Because there were so many biases in your study.
No.
Those biases has to, that's why I asked you, are you still following that study or not? So biases has to be removed. So just look into that. Otherwise, I think it was a good conclusion which you have given. A follow-up study would have been really better. Anyways, all the best.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Sujin. Next, I would like to call Anis UP. Is Anis there?
You are muted, Anis. Piyush sir.
Hello.
Yeah, you can.
Am I audible now?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, just 1 second. Hello. Hello. Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you're audible. Yes, sir, you're audible.
Yeah, okay. Unfortunately, I'm not able to slideshow my presentation because once I start putting it on slideshow, that is getting automatically minimized. So I'll present like this only. My topic is to compare the rate of rise of bilirubin in full-term babies born with fetal distress and without distress using transcutaneous bilirubinometry within the first 72 hours of life. The study was conducted at Dr. D.Y. Patil Medical College, Kolhapur, Maharashtra. Hyperbilirubinemia is a common condition in newborn. 60% of the term neonates and 80% of preterm neonates suffer from jaundice during the first week of life. In most of the cases, it is a benign problem. However, encephalopathy and kernicterus are the two serious complications induced by hyperbilirubinemia. Transcutaneous bilirubinometry is a simple, non-invasive, quick and painless method of estimating bilirubin levels in neonates. TCB is less expensive, it is easier to operate, poses potentially fewer risk, and requires less training than doing blood sampling for the estimation of serum bilirubin. Many studies have proved the efficacy of transcutaneous bilirubinometry in detecting hyperbilirubinemia in newborn. But there is scarcity of studies on the role of fetal distress on the occurrence of jaundice in both normal and cesarean section babies. So my study is aimed to investigate the association between neonatal bilirubin level, fetal distress, and the method of delivery, that is by normal vaginal delivery and the cesarean section. My aim is to compare the rate of rise of bilirubin in full-term babies born with fetal distress and without distress among normal vaginal delivery and cesarean section using TCB within the first 72 hours of life. My objectives are to determine the rate of rise of bilirubin level in full-term normal vaginal delivery babies born with fetal distress and without distress using TCB during the first 72 hours of life. The next objective is the same one, which is to be studied in cesarean section babies. And my final objective is to compare between the both groups, normal vaginal delivery and cesarean section babies. The rate of rise of bilirubin between fetal distress and cesarean section and normal vaginal delivery. The study was conducted at D.Y. Patil Hospital, Kolhapur. It was a longitudinal type of comparative study. 60 neonates were taken from normal vaginal delivery group and 60 neonates born through cesarean section were taken for delivery. Each main group was divided into two, babies having fetal distress and without fetal distress. And these babies were evaluated with transcutaneous bilirubinometer at first 6 hours of life, at the end of 12 hours, 24 hours, 48 hours, and 72 hours. A total of 5 TCB readings were obtained. Obtained readings were recorded and the rate of rise of bilirubin was detected in each group. The rate of rise of bilirubin was studied and compared in babies having fetal distress and without distress in both the groups. Fetal distress present and absent were considered as the primary outcome variables. The TCB value at different time periods, 6 hours, 12 hours, 24, 48 hours, 72 hours, and the rate of rise of bilirubin were considered as primary explanatory variable. A p-value less than 0.05 was considered statistically significant. Coming to the results of my study, there were 60 normal vaginal delivery babies and 60 babies who gave birth through the LSES route. Among the normal vaginal delivery group, the total number of babies who had fetal distress was 5, whereas in LSES group, the total number of babies who had fetal distress was 16. And out of the 5 fetal distress babies in normal vaginal delivery group, two babies developed significant jaundice at the end of 72 hours, which required phototherapy, which was 40%. Whereas in LSES group, 10 babies out of 16 babies with fetal distress developed significant jaundice, which required phototherapy, which was 62.5%. Comparison of mean rate of rise of bilirubin between the fetal distress groups. The mean rate of rise of bilirubin among the fetal distress present group was 0.17, whereas in absent group it was 0.14. This difference is statistically significant as suggested by the p-value, which means fetal distress is causing a significant role in the development of neonatal hyperbilirubinemia. Coming to the normal vaginal delivery group, in normal delivery group, there was no significant difference between the fetal distress and non-distress group. And regarding the LSES group, the mean TCB values given in the table at the end of 6 hours, 12, 24, 48, and 72 hours. In this, maximum rate of bilirubin was noticed between 48 to 72 hours, which can be due to increased release of bilirubin into the circulation after 48 to 72 hours, and also due to decreased conjugation action of the bilirubin by the enzymes in the liver. So the mean rate of rise of bilirubin among the LSES group, it was statistically significant between the two groups, that is fetal distress present group and distress absent group. The rate of rise of bilirubin was statistically significant. Coming to the conclusion, this study demonstrated that fetal distress is having significant association with the development of hyperbilirubinemia in newborn. There is increase in rate of rise of bilirubin among the babies born with fetal distress through the normal vaginal delivery also. It is also found that there is statistically significant rate of rise of bilirubin among the babies born with fetal distress through cesarean section. The findings of the current study depicts the need of meticulous monitoring and screening of the babies before discharge who had signs of fetal distress at birth for developing clinically significant hyperbilirubinemia and to prevent its complications. Thank you.
Thank you, Anis. My only question to you is,
yes, ma'am.
You are from the Department of
Pediatrics, ma'am.
Pediatrics.
Yes.
So you have shown lots of significant differences into two groups.
Yes,
What will
ma'am.
your final suggestion to the
Ma'am, my study which shows showing the result is showing that there is significant difference in rate of rise of bilirubin among the babies who were born with fetal distress and without distress, which means the babies born with fetal distress are having more risk of developing significant hyperbilirubinemia at the end of 72 hours. So those babies who had fetal distress at birth, either by normal delivery or by cesarean section, those babies should be carefully screened before they plan for early discharge from the hospital, because they are prone for developing significant jaundice at the end of 72 hours. Because nowadays there is a practice that babies are getting discharged from the hospital as early as possible to prevent nosocomial infections and all. So those babies who had fetal distress, they have to be evaluated thoroughly before discharge from the hospital. Otherwise, they will end up in complications of hyperbilirubinemia like encephalopathy and kernicterus.
Thank you, Anis. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Anis. Next, I would like to call Ms. Mitra M. You can present.
Is my slides are visible?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So good morning, one and all present here, and good morning to respectful judge. So I'm going to present my research topic. So myself, Mitra, I'm from Bachelor of Occupational Therapy, currently doing my internship at Department of Occupational Therapy, Sri Ramchandra Institute of Higher Education and Research. So title of my research study is use of origami as an intervention to improve activities of daily living for patient with constructional apraxia in stroke, a single case study. Okay, so these are the overview which I'm going to explain later. And in introduction, so constructional apraxia is a term that has been used to describe a form of perceptual motor impairment, which is commonly demonstrated by persons who have sustained severe head injury or cerebrovascular accident. So the concept of constructional apraxia has been defined as disturbance in spatial aspects of assembling, building, and drawing. So the activities of daily living of a person with constructional apraxia are particularly affected. So for an occupational therapist, it is important to evaluate constructional praxis skills in neurologically impaired patients and plan treatment accordingly, because many activities require is need regarding the adequate and appropriate occupational therapy treatment for patients with constructional apraxia. So this study will provide an appropriate treatment strategy to improve the activities of daily living in patients with constructional apraxia. So these are the recent literature reviews. And aim of my study is to find out the use of origami as an intervention to improve activities of daily living for patients with constructional apraxia in stroke. And my objective is to determine the use of origami in patients with constructional apraxia and to find out the improvements in activities of daily living. So in methodology, the participants occupational therapy Sri Hospital and ethical approval was gained from institutional ethical committee from Sri Ramchandra Hospital, and sample method that I've used is purposive sampling and study design is single case experimental design. So selection criteria includes participants with less than 15% in Ray ostrich complex figure test and age belonging 45 to 70 years, and Brunstone stage 4 to 5 and 5 to 6, and minimal hand function should be there with the voluntary motor control force greater than 75% and motor score of 37 above, and cognitive score of 23 and above in functional independence measure and functional assessment measure. So in exclusion comorbidities and other musculoskeletal disorders. So in this flow chart, I'm going to explain that how I conducted my study that assess the eligibility criteria from stroke population, then getting consent from study participant, then administration of pre-test and implementation of origami along with conventional occupational therapy for a period of 1 month, and administration of post-test, and data were analyzed and interpreted and result was concluded. So in data analysis, I have used line graph to show the difference between the pre and post data. So the result of the study shows that there is a marked difference between the functional independence measure and functional assessment measure, and there is an overall improvement. And in discussion, for the first research questions have been answered by the conventional occupational therapy along with origami was beneficial, as there was a marked difference in pre and post values. And in origami sessions have contributed to the achievement of positive outcomes. In second research question has been answered by, it shows an impact on motor component, cognitive component, and extended activities of daily living skills. So the observed differences in results within the shorter duration were because of the origami activity, which has been found evident by the study done by Susan Skew, and the conventional occupational therapy used for the participant was evident by the study done by Rossetti Gazzu. And the positive outcome was mainly due to the use of origami activity as an intervention, as its therapeutic values meets the components of constructional apraxia. Hence, the study meets the research question by showing an improvement in activity of daily living, and origami was useful for the patients. So limitation of the study was not generalized to the study population, as the study design was a single case study, and started study duration was used, and the performance based test was not used in the study due to inaccessibility. And purposive sampling, it is selected with the expectation that the participant will provide positive outcome to the study. And the recommendations for the future studies are it is recommended to use a large sample size to know the significant effectiveness of the intervention, and focus on different age groups can also be done, and to explore the effectiveness of intervention in other neurological conditions and comparing the types of stroke. The aim of the study was to find out the use of origami as an intervention to improve the activities of daily living in patients with the constructional apraxia in stroke. And the result of the study shows that there is a better outcome by using origami activity, and it has a positive effect on improving activities of daily living. So this study concludes that origami was beneficial, and it can also be used as one of the interventional modalities in treatments. So these were the references. Thank you.
Thank you, Mitra. It's an interesting study, but you have done only one case. Are you planning to do more?
Yeah, ma'am.
Because
yes, ma'am, I have suggested in future study.
Yeah, because if the result is really conclusive by statistical analysis, it's a wonderful, outcome.
Yes.
Has origami been used earlier also for this kind of?
Yes, ma'am. Which is the study done by Susan, ma'am, that origami has its therapeutic value, which can increase attention, concentration, assembling, folding. Such components are there, which meets the criteria of constructional apraxia problems of them.
So,
like people.
Just last thing I would like to, just suggest that because case study is always biased. Lots of biases are there. So if it is done in a larger group, at least 30 minimum for the statistical analysis to be done, probably you will be able to give us a better outcome.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay.
Thank you.
Can go for the next.
Yes, next, I would like to call Meemansa Jindal.
Hello, good morning, ma'am. Ma'am, am I audible and visible?
Yes, yes, you are.
Okay, I'll be sharing my screen. Can I start? Good morning, ma'am. This is Mimansa Jindal from UCMS, and today I'll be presenting my research on the topic Clinics but no clinical training, decoding the impact of COVID-19 lockdown on Indian medical undergraduates. So, because of this transition from conventional teaching methodologies to online teaching, medical education has been impacted, and more so, the impact has been significant in clinical training because this is a domain which enables medical students to relate their cognitive learning domain with psychomotor skills. Our aim here was to find out their perception about and also the differences between clinical training before and during lockdown. So, this was an observational multicentric study done through an online cross-sectional survey. We included third and fourth year medical students with the aim of including those students who have received clinical training both before and during lockdown. Thus, first and second year MBBS students and interns were excluded from the studies, and those who were not on social media or had a lack of access to the questionnaire were also automatically excluded. This study was conducted between December 2022 to February 2021 over 3 months, and the sample size was not prefixed because of the flexibility and massive population coverage offered by online surveys. So our question comprised of 3 parts. First was socio-demographic details, including the age, gender, course year, college name, type, and the state in which college is located. These states were further classified into categories 1, 2, and 3 based on the number of COVID-19 positive cases in them as per the data released by Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. The next part was based on the mode of clinical training during lockdown, which was quantified in terms of online clinical training and in-person clinical training hours per week. Lastly, perceptions about clinical training during COVID-19 lockdown were analyzed using a Likert scale-based comparison and an open-ended question about whatever differences they felt. The basic construct validation of this questionnaire was done through analysis by experts at UCS Delhi. And for reliability, items in the 5-point Likert scale were subjected to Cronbach's alpha analysis, and the values came out to be more than 0.9 in all situations. Statistical analysis was carried out in a threefold manner. Categorical variables were shown as percentages, and association was analyzed using chi-square test. Continuous variables from those from the Likert scale-based comparison were represented in the form of median and interquartile range and was subjected to bivariate analysis, which was, since our data was paired and non-parametric, we subjected it to Wilcoxon sign bank test. Lastly, themes from the open-ended responses were subjected to thematic analysis. So we received a total of 1,000 responses from 191 medical colleges, with the median response being 6 from each college. Most of the students, irrespective of the mode of clinical teaching, felt that clinical training was significantly better before lockdown. Also, the proportion of private medical colleges that have shifted to online training was significantly more in private medical colleges than that in government medical colleges. We tried to find an association with the year of study and state, but it was not found to be significant. Here is a box whisker plot for subparts of item number 2, which includes history taking, physical examination, interpreting laboratory values, etc. Thematic analysis was done by organizing the answers into 4 major themes: advantages and disadvantages of online clinical training and advantages and disadvantages of in-person clinical training. Since the disadvantages of online clinical training overlap with the advantages of in-person training, it was not made a separate theme per se. So while online clinical training was more comfortable, gave plenty of time for self-study and was more focused, it definitely lacked patient interaction, had network issues, poor connectivity, and it was difficult to simulate real clinical scenarios online. Students who were subjected to in-person clinical training felt that the number of patients were less, faculty and staff were busy in COVID management, and there was limited exposure to patients because of imminent fear of contracting the infection. Thus, to conclude, learning experiences of clinical training during lockdown were perceived inferior than that before lockdown by most medical students. Also, thus the availability and optimization of existing resources is crucial in order to deliver quality medical education. And also, it is vital to implement innovative strategies in case such a situation arises in future. Here are my references for the study. Thank you.
Thank you, Mimansa. Was actually the burning topic
Yes, ma'am.
which everyone was talking about during these times, um, especially for the medical students, because as you have presented, your different domains work, visual impact is very, very important there. So it was a very good study.
Thank you,
And
ma'am.
the results are also are acceptable to, have you published it somewhere?
Ma'am, I've applied for publication and it's currently under review.
Okay, it's a good study, good study.
Thank you, ma'am.
Very nicely statistically analyzed, I must say.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mimansa. Next, I would like to call Manokya Bethapuri.
Good morning, everyone. Can you see my screen? Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible.
Yeah, I'll start now. So before going to the formal heading of my topic, good morning, judges, moderators, and fellow participants. I would like to actually, one second. Yeah. Good morning, judges, moderators, and fellow participants. Before going on to have a look at my topic of presentation, let's see what set off me on this question. And it all started on the 5th of October 2021, when there was a global WhatsApp outage, and it led to a flurry of activity on other social messaging and media apps, specifically Twitter. This tweet is by Dr. Sanjay Nagraj, sir, who's an eminent surgeon and is also a publisher of Indian Journal of Medical Ethics. And this made me ask the question, how many people actually use WhatsApp to share private patient data and how do they go about it? So now to the formal heading of my topic, which is it's a cross-sectional study on the prevalence of WhatsApp as an interprofessional communication tool among Indian healthcare professionals. Needless to say that there is an exponential rise in the use of people people using social media messaging platforms like WhatsApp, Telegram, and such, not just for personal use, but also for professional use, as well as in our context, specifically for patient data transfer. The objective of my study is to examine the prevalence of WhatsApp use as a tool of interprofessional communication by Indian healthcare professionals and an exploration of the extent of its use and the ethical concerns it raises. The methodology, as I've already discussed, was the recent WhatsApp outage. And I questioned if WhatsApp really had such monopoly over the communication between doctors. And thus I created a questionnaire on Google Forms and collected data on the digital behavior of healthcare professionals. In fact, coincidentally, I did share the same questionnaire on WhatsApp. This is the screenshot of my questionnaire. Well, why I specifically shared this screenshot is because the message above the Google Form link is actually a patient update, which I had sent to my senior during the peak of the COVID-19 pandemic. And a few months later, here I am questioning the rampant use of WhatsApp to share sensitive patient data with others. The ethical concerns specifically were that the sharing of personal private data of patients on social media platforms, often with identifying markers, and then despite the fact that every chat window on WhatsApp is prefixed with the message assuring end-to-end encryption and privacy, but there are so many instances of data breaches. In fact, just in 2021, there has been a data breach which has exposed 2.2 billion WhatsApp users and left their information in the internet open for all. Then there is a lack of awareness about among both patients and healthcare professionals about patient privacy laws and patient data protection. Specifically, the MCI Code of Ethics Regulation Part 5 protects patient confidentiality by stating that the physician shall not disclose the secrets of a patient that has been learned in the exercise of his or her profession. Along with that, the right to privacy of a patient is enshrined in the Article 21 of Right to Privacy. And so my results, it was just a questionnaire, and it was a small pilot study. So far I have been able to collect only 82 respondents, and of that, after analysis of the data, it shows that 89% use WhatsApp to communicate patient data with colleagues as well as their seniors, and then 82.9% were confirmed to be a part of a departmental WhatsApp group made specifically for sharing such data. A whopping 70.7% use WhatsApp daily to share patient data with their colleagues. This again just goes to show the extent and the magnitude of WhatsApp use in our daily life. 62.2% knew of alternative and relatively safe source of communication, most commonly cited one being email at 47.9%. Only 48.8% respondents answered that they tried to ensure the privacy of patients and their data, which just goes to show the stark difference in usage versus the informed usage of WhatsApp. On a side note, I just want to establish the need for WhatsApp in this socially distanced era by pointing out that 91.5% respondents found WhatsApp to be a useful communication tool during the COVID-19 pandemic. Only 35.4% respondents were aware of any laws regarding patient privacy and data protection in India. Conclusion is that the findings of this small pilot study demonstrate the high prevalence of WhatsApp messaging as an interprofessional communication tool among Indian healthcare professionals. The simplicity and the use of WhatsApp in COVID-19 pandemic further demonstrates that the use of such social platforms for communication of sensitive data is here to stay. However, there is a need for framing guidelines about patient data and privacy protection, as well as an awareness of laws that protect the patients both among healthcare professionals and the general public. It is time we realize that the WhatsApp is a data mine which has constant breaches and use it vigilantly. There is an acute need for EMR or electronic medical record system and a sound healthcare professional communication system that avoids the pitfalls of using public social media messaging platforms for patient data transfer. The take-home message is that WhatsApp is here to stay, and we should all learn to navigate it in an ethical manner. The limitations of my research, as previously discussed, are that my sample size currently is too small, and it only raises questions of patient data privacy without offering feasible solutions. Scope of further research is that it helps to know the pattern of sharing patient data on WhatsApp, and in turn helps in making frameworks and guidelines for the safe use of such public messaging platforms for health data transfer. It will also help make more healthcare professionals vigilant and careful about sharing such data and protect the patient privacy. These are my references. Thank you. And this is the QR code to the form. You can access it anytime.
Thank you, Dr. Manognia. It's a social evil, I feel. What your results have suggested, you have given only qualitative results on that, isn't it? You have simply shown the percentages.
Yes.
And ethical concerns are very high. It's just a suggestion, like ethical concerns are very high, but it is, you know, no other platform is giving that much of scope as far as WhatsApp is concerned. And as far as I know, each and every clinician is having that into their WhatsApp. The only problem is when they do the surgery or any kind of, you know, simple photographing of the patient, this thing, procedures, they not only share it on the official group, sometimes I have seen these students sharing it into a journal facial, these social groups also, which has to be stopped, and there has to be a system developed where they have to take an oath of privacy, of data sanctity, which is very, very much need of the hour. So it has to be, you know, done a lot of.
Yes, ma'am. In fact, recently there has been a case in Maharashtra.
Yeah. So that has to be taken, because I have seen even first year students taking the pictures of even the bodies they are dissecting and sending it to the social media, which is actually again a ethical breach. That is why, with the help of all the seniors, this ethics has been introduced as their first year course. So we have long way to go here. Data protection is not being done, and most of them do not even know about the informed consent of the patient for using this data in any manner which is not protected. Nice topic. We can start for the next one.
Yes, ma'am.
Next, I would like to call Parikshit Rai. Is Parikshit Rai there? I guess is not there. Okay, so I would like to call the last participant, Devyan Chakravarti.
Hello,
You're audible.
am I audible?
Yeah.
Good morning, everyone. I am Dr. Devan Chakravarti from LTMGH San Hospital. I would like to present a case on the various non-specific ECG changes in non-cardiac case. We got a 79-year-old elderly male on 15 March 2020 who presented with nausea, bloating of abdomen associated with retrosternal discomfort and obstipation since 1 day, and low-grade fever with vomiting since 6 hours. He also had hypothyroidism, hypertension, and dyslipidemia, for which he was on medication. He has also received first dose of COVID vaccine Covishield on 10th of March 2021. His vitals were all normal. BP of 140/70, saturation was normal. CVS and RS was all right. He had parabdomen right hypochondriac tenderness. His ECG was done in view of persistent abdomen, which was not treated with medication, which showed a ST elevation with T inversion in lead 1 and AVL. On further investigation, his TROPI was found to be negative. Creatinine and other reports were normal, with CBC showing a site leukocytosis of 12,570. His CRP was also marginally raised with 16, and USG abdomen was suggested of overdistended gallbladder with pericholecystatic fluid. Patient was managed with injectables. However, he refused admission and went home. But on next day, in view of severe persistent abdomen, he presented again in emergency, for which he was admitted. And in view of this persistent abdomen, he was done a CT scan of abdomen, which revealed to be acute gangrenous cholecystitis, which showed focal areas of rent and dehiscence involving the medial wall of gallbladder with pericholecystatic fat standing. 2D echo was done in view of ECG changes, which showed to be normal with ejection fraction of 60% and with no regional wall movement abnormality. Patient underwent open cholecystectomy in view of the same. Histopathology of sample was suggestive of acute gangrenous cholecystitis. However, there was no evidence of stone, neither on post-op specimen nor on CT scan. A take-home message in this case was there are multiple non-cardiac reasons that may lead to ECG changes. History and clinical findings should always be correlated before arriving at a diagnosis. Although cardiac causes should be ruled out in case of ischemic changes in ECG, it's always good to keep in mind that certain abdominal pathology can also lead to such changes. There's also a point to ponder upon whether the patient should receive the second dose of vaccine, as there is significant chance that the attack of gangrenous cholecystitis that the patient had suffered may be due to the prothrombotic nature of COVID infection. Thank you.
Thank you, Devyan. Only one question, or rather one point which I just wanted to say, that can you come to the last slide?
Okay. Yes.
Yeah. So here you have obviously written points to ponder. The second point, the attack of gangrenous cholecystitis may have been due to the prothrombotic
Yes.
COVID infection. Why do you think so? Any basis behind that?
Ma'am, there has been numerous case reports of such incidences happening. Acute gangrenous intestinal obstruction as well as cholecystitis happening after receiving COVID infection. So there is a rising concern that it may be because of the prothrombotic nature of the vaccine. However, there is not a definite study. There is not a definite study that proves this, but there has been multiple case reports all over the world that is coming up.
So was there any decision taken on the second dose of vaccine for this particular patient?
No, as of now, the patient did not receive the second dose of vaccine because of the concerns.
So it was decided as per your surgical.
Yeah, the department not to give the vaccine for now because he has already suffered an incident and we don't know for sure whether it was the culprit or not.
Okay, interesting. Thank you, Devanya.
Thanks. Thank you, ma'am.
So I think this was the last presentation of the day for this session, sorry.
Yes, ma'am.
Mona, Shirley, are we done with presentation?
Yeah. Yes, Shubham. Yeah.
Okay. Ma'am, the most awaited session for all event, we'll be now heading towards group photo session. I request everyone to please switch on their video cam. You guys have done terrific and amazing job. It's time now to take a credit and capture our memories rather. I request everyone to please switch on their video cam.
I'll take off my specs.
Of course, ma'am. Whatever you feel is comfortable. Piyush sir, you also please switch on your video cam.
Can I also come in?
I wasn't expecting this. I'm not presentable.
No,
Shubham,
the whole event is
Shubham, can
happening
I
because
come in?
of course. Oh, ma'am. Hello, ma'am. Good morning.
I've been listening. I've been there. Hi, Dr. Jyoti.
So glad to see you.
Hi.
So we just now finished our poster presentation, and it was
Yeah, I was
also like
I was
amazing.
listening to it. Very interesting.
Yes. And we had amazing judges like Jyoti Batra ma'am and Rajatana ma'am who took the session very smoothly.
I have been groomed by Russell sir and Mary ma'am.
No,
To them.
In fact, we have also been groomed by Russell sir, Mary ma'am, and you, of course, ma'am. I request everyone to please switch on the video cam.
So I'll also take off my specs since Dr. Jyoti is.
Okay. Wait, I'll also take down.
So everyone remove your specs.
Yeah. Mona, can you please click a screenshot?
Yeah, I'll do. Perfect. Yeah, I took the pictures.
I take a privilege to thank Dr. Jyoti Batra ma'am for accepting our invitation. I know ma'am is very much packed up with a lot of work. She's dean at Santosh Medical College and like she has got her schedule fully occupied, but I'm fortunate and very happy that she agreed to accept our invitation and judge the paper presentation. Ma'am, it's always like a learning experience when you are around us. The way you speak, the way you carry yourself, the way you speak with proper voice modulation and something which every presenter should learn from you definitely. And I guess we all have taken home a very good message that there are more opportunities coming ahead and we need to grab it as soon as possible. Also, I would request Dr. Mary ma'am to say a few words if possible.
Thank you, Shubham. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. I thought it was a really interesting, wonderful session that this pandemic has brought in so many ethical issues that we can, like one of the, the last presenter said, we can need to ponder over so many things. And actually it has changed the face of ethical dilemmas that we which we used to see in books. Now it is definitely something new. And I think even the challenges are new, but somehow we've all got through this pandemic, and we are coming out of it as survivors and victors, and with more new knowledge and learning experience. And I'm very glad that the students have used this platform very well. I remember when you talk about student conferences, it was usually subject-oriented conferences that students wanted to go. But now we have a platform for ethics, and we are seeing it really flourish in a very big way. And I think it is also because of the leadership that the students are taking more than the faculty. It is students who are spearheading all these activities, and that is the success story that we are seeing right now. So really congratulations to all the presenters. Very well done. Very, I mean, really scientific studies. It's not just cases or case reports or something like that, which are the usual run-in-the-mill kind, but really good studies. And congratulations to all of you. And I thank Dr. Jyoti for being the judge for today, and of course Shubham and team, Mona and all of you for conducting it very well. So thank you very much.
Yeah. I would now request Dr. Jyoti ma'am to kindly say a few words and tell us.
No, I'm still having those beautiful words which you have said about me inside my ears. Thank you so much for that. But it was a wonderful platform, and every day we are learning from our students. There are so many topics that they have raised are very genuine and very, thought-provoking. Which I really liked, and those case studies were really novel in one or the other sense. So I mean, they have not only presented the ethical dilemmas here; they have connected the ethics issues with their subjective knowledge. So that is what I am really glad and happy about it, and all of them were really good. So thank you for giving me this platform, Dr. Shiv Joshi, Dr. Shubham, and rest of the team. I mean, it was a very nicely conducted workshop as far as a scientific committee is concerned. You have done a wonderful job. And I actually, give you a very good pat on the back for that, and all the best for the coming days.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Ma'am, I feel if the foundation is strong, construction is strong. And the main driving force behind all this Ethos conference is the one and only Dr. Shiv Joshi, sir, because he's been a guiding light for all of us through our thick and thin. We have been troubling him at 3 a.m. in the morning, 4 a.m. in the morning, and patiently he just replies our text. So I will take an opportunity and ask Shiv, sir, to say a few words if possible, sir. So the stage is all yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Shubham. And I think it's a wonderful teamwork that we have here. And under the support of the program, heads, the faculty like Professor Russell, Professor Mary, and thank you, Jyoti ma'am, for taking out the time and judging this event. Because as students, we really appreciate that you promote us, you encourage us to do better. At the same time, it is equally important to guide us and correct us wherever we fail in certain areas. So you always been there as faculty to guide us, and that has definitely helped to make Ethos what it is today. So we have learned a lot in the past 4 years, and this year we are coming out with this fourth edition of Ethos, which I think will definitely surpass all the other benchmarks set earlier. So thank you, Shubham, for the opportunity. Thank you, Mary ma'am. Thank you, Jyoti ma'am.
Thank you so much. I would like to thank Shirley, Mona as well, and also special thank to Dr. Akshay sir and Shreya ma'am. So if you would like to say something, Akshay sir, Shreya ma'am, you there?
Shreya is not online. I think Akshay is
I guess Shreya is in post. Akshay
Shreya
sir,
should
you
be in the
there?
other. Yeah, she should be in the other workshop. Yeah.
Akshis, are you there? Can you hear me?
He might be in the OT giving anesthesia to someone.
Yeah. Okay, then. Thank you so much, everyone, for making this event a grand success today. Special thank to our judge for the day, Dr. Jyoti Batra ma'am, for accepting our invitation, gracing this occasion by her presence. And we again have paper and poster presentations in the evening. And this is going to continue till 16th. If you are a keen and avid learner, and if you want to attend more of sessions, we'll definitely send you a group link. You guys can definitely attend session and learn a lot out of it, because we have very experienced judges and panelists judging the competition. So I'm damn sure that you are definitely going to take some home message from these sessions. Thank you so much once again. And thank you so much for providing me this opportunity. Thank you so much once again, everyone.
All the best to all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And good job, Charlie and Mona. Well done.
Yeah.
Thank you, Shubham.
All right.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
I think Rahul, you are already
Yes, sir.
here. You're
Yes,
going
sir.
to moderate the quiz, right?
Yes, sir. So
Great. Okay.
we will be starting very shortly. I think we can all take a break from the the amazing poster presentation, which just concluded right now. We will see you in another 10 minutes, after which we will start with the screening for the preliminary round of the quiz. First, we will be moving on with solo events, followed by which we will have the group quiz. See you all at 11:50. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rahul.